recording. Technical difficulties, but whatever. Ever since I've had Charlie Duke on, I imagine that I am now graced with the ingenuity of Apollo astronauts, and therefore, when something goes wrong, I'm like, well, because I talked to Charlie Duke, who was on Apollo 16, that now means that I have inherited the direct skills of the engineers on Apollo 13. And
you just need sticky notes, man, and you're good.
And some people may say that that's a stretch, and they are terrorists, and they should be executed in Guantanamo. But seeing as how we're off to a strong start, for everybody listening, this is my buddy David O'Neill, his second appearance as he's being indoctrinated or initiated into the senior executive service of my podcast. We are the entrenched power structure. We, not YouTube, not BitChute, we determine the path of this podcast. We are the shadow.
Damn straight. And, this country and our national security infrastructure has what I like to call senior executive problems, and I'm here to bring senior executive solutions.
Executives. And that's what this
that's going to be the name of the company.
That's what this podcast is, Senior Executive Solutions. That's what this podcast is we are the deep state of podcasts. We will pull the strings. We will play both sides. I will sell microphones to both sides. But, dude, I'm listening to, I'm having on the author I had on a couple weeks ago, Michael Swanson, who wrote War State, and I'm reading his book about Vietnam, and I was drawn to it because the title was Nuclear Bombs in Vietnam, and I was like, I've never seen those two in the same sentence. But we
have to deforest the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
We have to, yeah. And apparently, in the eyes of a lot of the Pentagon officials, Agent Orange was like us being pussies. They were like an airburst thermonuclear weapon. I think some of the exact wording was like, it'll ignite the whole country in one afternoon. And it was like, gee, there really are demons just running this world.
We're already willing to commit necromancy to put people into office. Let's dig Goldwater up and let's finish the job, okay?
Yeah, Goldwater, LeMay, fuck it. If we can really hone our skills, let's bring back Andrew Jackson and let's just run this bitch, man. Let's just do it what it is, right? But
hey, just like Warhammer 40K, you have the God Emperor stuck on like the life support throne. It'll be great.
Yes,
we ended last time talking about becoming cocaine cowboys and like Knights of Malta for the deep state, and then you had Claire on talking about how our missile defense on the southern border is a little bit lackluster. So, like, where else to go but then to talk about like Chinese and Red Terror in South America?
Hey, I mean that's. This podcast, it's been escalating to like me yelling with friends to now like former CIA officials, and we're talking about missile defense. I mean, I can only hope that if and when the government kills me, that they at least let me do it while I'm live streaming.
Just you hope you get that explosion like in the background and you get that reaction, and that'll be like the thumbnail for everyone else when they make videos about it.
I'll be dead and I won't be able to, but at least let me get some like shares and subscribes. I can't decide. Do I want a nuclear blast in the distance and have just like half a frame of my face turning like white as like the gamma rays come in? Do I want classic like a silenced bullet through the forehead? And the camera's just still running as I'm just bleeding? Or do I want them to pull some like NSA SCS, like Special Collection Service? Do I want them to put a miniaturized claymore in my webcam? Like,
so I've thought about this a lot, and the way I would like to go is with. I would never do this. This is just pure speculation. I would never do this in the continental United States in my life. But if I thought out the time was coming, I want thermobaric charges embedded in the drywall, and I just want to be like there on a dead man switch and a bullhorn just going, I hope you fuckers wore Nomex today. And that's how I want it to end. That's how I want it to end.
Fuck. What was that subreddit that got banned amongst all the other wrong thing? But it was after the Donald. It was Weekend Gun It. I was only there in the tail end of that. I discovered a weekend. Did you ever go there? Weekend Gun It?
I didn't do too much on Reddit. Like, my days with the internet nerd communities, like I got into like Something Awful. And then, obviously I grew up in the 4chan generation, fucking with the Church of Scientology and shit like that. And by the time Reddit came along, I was kind of, I'd get links from people there, but I never really had a presence there.
Yeah. I was perma banned from Reddit, like the IP banned, which a lot of people didn't think was possible, but I am. But I mean, I had been on there on and off for like 10 years. I would always use it for whatever, when I was pre-med or when I was trying to do like a charity, psychedelics, artwork, whatever. Not important. The point is there's a subreddit called Weekend Gunnit, Gunnit. I didn't know anything about it. I don't know anything. I truly don't know a whole lot about guns. As conservative as I am, I'm pretty noob retarded when it comes to guns. But the whole thing was just this whole. That's the first time I'd ever heard of like the Boogaloo Boys. Like it had been there, and I remember when I discovered it, I was like, oh, because it was after the Donald had been banned. I was like, oh, this place is next. And sure enough, within like maybe a month, it was banned, and I think they're on the .win network now. Point is they had some great memes, and my favorite meme is the bad guy from The Incredibles. You know, like the guy with like the orange hair. I saw that movie in like middle school. I'm sure you did. You know,
yeah, I barely remember it, but I know I saw it.
The meme is, you sly dog, you had me monologuing. And
yeah.
But they photoshopped it, and he's holding like a silenced Mac-10, and it's the caption is like, when the ATF is surrounding my house and I'm on a bullhorn reading the Bill of Rights, and I realize that they're coming in the back door. You sly dog! You had me monologuing. But that's what I made the thermobaric charges. It's like, or the other one, it's like the scared guy from Saving Private Ryan. You know, the guy with like the M1. He's like, he's like shaking. And it's like it's like a cop on his first day lining up at my uncle's house to do a gun raid, and all they hear is a fortunate sun blazing. He's just lined up at the door like, oh fuck.
It's either that or we didn't start the fire. There's sprinkler systems with gasoline or something like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What was the other one? The Bane and Pink guy. You know that meme, and it's his last summer. It was like the National Guard enforcing like a nationwide COVID quarantine. And then it's like, or the National Guard with M16s threatening me with my super soaker of LSD.
Yeah.
The pink guy. But
yeah, no, the Boogaloo memes were great, but holy crap, that got banned. Because, a lot of those groups tend to be like heavily libertarian and like this mixture of populist Republicans and libertarians coming together. And then there's this weird phenomenon that happens every time the Democrats steal the nomination from Bernie. You get a bunch of socialists that don't know what the word libertarian means, but they just want to call themselves anything other than Democrat, to stick it to the Democrats. And so they join all the libertarian groups and start trying to explain how libertarian socialism works. And then next thing you know, they get pissed off at the actual libertarians. They call the Republicans racist. And next thing you know, they're reporting everyone. The groups are getting nuked, and it just turns into a big clusterfuck.
And all the while, the defense machine's just moving on, just funneling.
Yep,
we're all screaming at each other, you Republican, you Democrat, yeah, and all the while we just sold 1,100 tanks to Saudi Arabia.
And that's what we're about to learn about Bolivia, because I remember one of the comments on the first one was the difference between the culture war and geopolitics, and the truth is there really isn't a difference. The only difference is what you said before, is the dial of violence versus the light switch, and that's not a left versus right thing. That's just a
human
weeks.
nature.
Yeah, we're we have so many weak, soft people that would they would throw up if they smelt the iron in the blood. They're not ready. They use the club because they're not ready for the blood. But you go down to say, look at Latin America, and the reason I'm going to bring up Shining Path in Peru before talking about Bolivia is just because it's very important that when Shining Path gets driven underground and their political leadership gets taken out, they become a cross-border drug running operation into Bolivia, and they have more influence kind of in Bolivia than in Peru because they have to keep their heads down in Peru, which is onto their shit, because from 1980 to 1990 they waged a bloody insurgency, and we don't really hear about it because the low population density. When we hear about crazy Maoists killing people, we're used to hearing millions, but what's 70 to 80,000 among comrades, right? That's nothing. That's no big deal. But that's exactly what happened in Peru. Is you had a Maoist philosophy professor with the God complex. This is how Antifa starts, and this is what it always turns into. And next thing you know, they're running around, they're killing people. And if you're Chinese intelligence, coming out of the 90s, coming into the war on terror, you notice that America's eyes are all focused way over here now. And what is a better place for you to set up a network than there's already a drug running group of Maoist sympathetic people that, are set up in Bolivia, which the reason I care about Bolivia, I'm not, an altruistic person. The reason I care about Bolivia is because optimistic estimates is that's 70% of our lithium supply, known lithium supply. And even if that's optimistic, give or take a few percentage points, that's still a absolute strategic value amount of lithium.
Fuck it. So let's pretend you're half off. Let's say there's only 35%. It's still a major amount of lithium that, we would rather make sure is in sympathetic. At the very least, we would like them to start using it than just to, send it straight to the Chinese. Can you?
But that's what's happening.
Can you go into the importance of lithium?
So I'm not going to pretend to be an engineer that knows every little thing that they can be used for, but we like power, right? We like our batteries. We like things that work.
Okay, that's good enough.
It's batteries. At the end of the day, we want our phones to work. We want our laptops to work. And God knows where lithium batteries are going to be 10 years from now. We're starting to hear people talk about like solid state batteries and stuff like now. I'm not going to pretend like that's way above my head. I'm not going to try to go there. But that's why we care about Bolivia. And it's also why we're also seeing China, really start to move into Argentina to try to get what lithium is there too. We're seeing them very active all over. But Bolivia is really the hot spot where we can see all this stuff developing and happening in real time. And let me tell you, if there's one job you do not want to ever have, it's being the interim president of Bolivia, because those people get charged with treason and sedition all the time. And so just with the knowledge that you have drug running groups like Shining Path that are Maoist sympathetic operating in Bolivia. And then what ends up happening is it's the same thing that happens here, where you have, I believe, the interim president, Eduardo Veltzi, I'm going to butcher his name, but, he went to Harvard, John F. Kennedy School of Government kind of guy. You couldn't ask for like a more elitist, like Western imperialistic capital.
They took him out of a test tube in Langley.
Yes. Yeah. They basically took him out of a test tube and put him in there. And if it's not a guy like that, it's some European or whatever. And basically the idea is the same way the rhinos here will do it is they're going to give you this watered down, crappy version of liberal. It's never even going to be full on conservative. Everything's pretty left down there. But, whatever it's going to be just enough to give the communists enough to make them want more, but it's going to be enough to piss everyone else off. Mm-hmm. And then what's going to happen is when you're no longer willing to tolerate the good cop selling your country out, they're going to bring in these cross-border terrorists, same way, the Taliban in Pakistan could, easily come across into Afghanistan or something like that. Because at the end of the day, if you're a radical militant, right, you don't want to shit where you eat, if everyone knows who I am here and I go out, causing violence for goals that I support, everyone's going to figure that out really quick. And that's why you hear people talk about like the diversity of tactics. You're going to have your peaceful protesters, your locals. And it's the same reason the local protesters never start a riot and burn things down. It's the guys that come out outside in looking for a party and they start messing things up. So you have the peaceful local protesters. They're doing surveillance. They're acting as spotters. They're developing targets. And then when the time's right, they bring in, guys across the border and things kick off, really bad. And this is why, if you want to understand the backstory of what's going on in Bolivia right now, China Unscripted has 2 podcasts. I know I sent you the link to them, and I highly recommend anyone go back and watch these. They have an activist on both times. Her name is Janine Vaca Daza, if I remember correctly. Probably butchering it, but really nice, sweetheart girl, knows what's going on there, been involved in the peaceful protest movement for quite a while. And so what ends up happening is you have Evo Morales coming into power off of this Harvard-educated interim president. And basically what he made the mistake of doing, the interim president, is he decommissioned some Chinese man-portable anti-air missiles. I forget the nomenclature for the Chinese version, but it's basically a knockoff of the Strela. Yeah. The Strela is the Russian version of the Stinger, basically. Okay. And this was the Chinese version of that they had ripped off. And when they were decommissioning these, they sent these to the United States. So Evo Morales comes in and is just like, look at this Harvard-educated dog. He's selling us out to the Americans. They charge him with treason and sedition and stuff like that. Now they dropped the charges, but that should just give you an idea how Evo Morales is coming in, right?
Real quick side note, I was going to say there's no greater microcosm example of blowback than the shoulder-mounted anti-aircraft missile.
Yeah, right.
The Stinger, whatever. There's no greater, just encapsulated. There's no greater example of. It's like if you look up in the encyclopedia, what's the definition of blowback? Just shoulder-mounted missile, baby.
At least we got Rambo 3 out of that mistake, but you
got to take the wins, right? You got
take the win. We got Rambo 3.
Got to keep the war machine plugging forward. But sorry, back to Evo Morales.
Yeah, so Evo Morales charges his predecessor with treason and whatnot. The charges eventually get dropped, but they basically played the exact same racial politics game they played here. They're saying Evo Morales, he's this indigenous dude. Okay, he's not wearing a suit. He's wearing, a more, ethnic outfit and everything. We it's the same thing to do here. We got the brownest guy we could find. It's fine. Brown. It's fine. It doesn't matter if he's selling the country out to China. It's fine. We got the indigenous.
But he's brown.
Yeah. The native guy said it's okay to sell the country out, so it's okay. And so this guy's in power, comes into power in 2016, and then really up until about 2018 is where we start to see this massive kind of protest movement and everything that results in him kind of losing power, fleeing the country. Evo Morales flees. What's her name? Inez, I forget her first name. I'm probably mixing a few of them up, but I know her last name is Inez. She comes in and she's like the center right. And by center right, I mean like European Union. They have this liberal Democrat, center-right league thing. So it's not even like a real right-wing person. It's just like a moderate that comes in to try to sort things out. And if you listen to the second China Unscripted episode, you can literally hear the activists talking about, hey, we got to lock down because their version of Antifa is coming in, starting all kinds of violence, starting all kinds of bloodshed. And, down there, it's not the dial, it's the light switch. It's either on or off.
For that quote he keeps referring to, that's not my quote. I heard it from Sam Kolper, who was on my podcast, and I think Sam was quoting someone. Point is the quote is, in a nutshell, in 2020, you could see this perfectly. The left views violence as a dial. The right views it as a light switch, meaning riot more, riot more, riot more. Look, their guy got in the office, the rioting stops, whereas the right views it more as like it doesn't happen or it's Hiroshima. So, but just for everybody listening, that's it. Sorry, back to you, David.
Yep. And so that's basically the way we think of it there. But down there, it's straight up the light switch. And so we see a ton of violence erupt over this. And in October, the socialist government comes back into power under the Luis Aker, I think his name is. But he was the financial minister under Morales. And so he comes in as president. And then and of course, Evo Morales comes back from his little exile, and they're pissed because, they view it as, basically both sides are calling each other saying, hey, you guys did the coup, and there's violence kicking off everywhere. And so as soon as this kind of starts happening, first off, our media doesn't want to talk about it because when Evo Morales got basically exiled and the socialists lost, by the way, all of mainstream media, it was like the exact opposite of what you would expect from Western media. It was all far right this, far right that, CIA back this. First off, CIA had fuck all to do with it. For all I know, that the only thing they know how to do down there is drink cheap booze and get blowjobs from like Latin queens. Okay. As far as I know, our Bolivia, yeah, it's, not a bad, life on government pay and all, but as far as I'm aware, we don't really have a great policy on Bolivia at all. And, kind of with good reason. It's just kind of blowing up into a dumpster fire. But so as of just a few days ago, after we had already said we were going to talk about this, Inez gets arrested and now she's being charged with treason. Yeah. And we don't know if it'll be dropped. It could just be the warning shot against the bow, hey, look what's happening to her. Y'all better settle down and accept the socialism or it's coming for you. But yeah, we're in clown world. It's like count the presidents of Bolivia. You can't. There's just, it's in and out game of here's this Western educated technocratic elite that, wants to screw you over. And when you get sick of him, they're going to bring in Red Terror to make you wish you had that guy back. And that's just kind of the polarity. And it's the same game they had here. We had Paperclip bringing in German intelligence to kind of think this game here. And it's the same game down there where they're kind of playing both sides like that. And so that's why Bolivia right now is just an absolute fucking mess. I wasn't even expecting it to blow up this quickly. The reason I wanted to talk about Bolivia is because I thought, hey, no one really is paying attention to Bolivia, and I'd just like to, shine a little bit of a spotlight on it. But now it's getting more relevant as we speak.
Sure. Well, yeah.
It's a fun time.
Yeah. Man, if that's just not going to paint this podcast more and more as something to watch, it's just like, isn't it kind of weird how you talked about Bolivia, like the day it happened? It's going to be like, I didn't have anything to do with this, I swear. But I hope this podcast slowly turns into like a Forrest Gump-esque thing where it's like, and there I was, it's like, if this was in the 2000s, I'd be sitting there and you'd see like a plane hit the North Tower in the background and it'd be like, fuck was that? Like that's what I feel like that's how this podcast
Tommy's using the holograms.
Tim Dillon, he's like, what I didn't learn is a lot of people think that the Israelis put charges in the World Trade Centers. Other people think it was a CIA. They allowed it through the net. He goes, but the reality is 9/11 didn't happen. The towers are still there. And he's like, when someone comes at you, he goes, you got to dial it up 10 times over. If someone wants to play conspiracy, he's like, you got to jack it up. So when the left says, ha ha ha, Herman Cain died from coronavirus, you look them dead in the eyes and say, Herman Cain's still alive. He goes, you just got to.
One of my buddies was a master of this, and I remember, I don't know how the JFK subject came up, but, he was smoking a lot of weed back then, and we're just bullshitting, over like Discord or whatever. It might have been TeamSpeak. I don't know, whatever the hell it was back then. But we're just talking, and all of a sudden you just hear this big fat bong rip, and you just hear him go, maybe his head just did that. Like maybe JFK just like achieved gnosis. Like he had the God spark, and his head just did that. He
walked through what Ram Dass said, like the keyhole in your mind. He walked through onto the other side, and he got his 8th chakra, and that was it.
Yeah, free your mind and the ass will follow. Maybe every time.
Maybe it was just the rarest medical condition that it does actually happen like once every 100 billion like human lives. So your head just explodes. Have you heard the conspiracy that there was a car back or Lee Harvey did fire a shot and it spooked a Secret Service agent and he pulled the trigger and shot JFK?
I have not heard that one, but like I want the source. I want the copy paste of that one because that sounds like that guy had some good stuff when he had that thought.
I love that one because the entire idea is like, no, it really was like this new Secret Service agent shot him on the car behind him pulled the trigger and just through dumb chances just
like what was it in Pulp Fiction where they just like hit the speed bump or something?
No, it really was. It's like he just pulled the trigger and it was just he no-scoped him, and it's like they realized that like that was almost as detrimental as like the Soviets killing him because what that showed is we are completely inadequate. So they had to keep it secret.
Probably my favorite, if we're just going to go into full shit talk mode about JFK conspiracy theories, I love the one where it's who Jerry Miculek is, the competitive shooter.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like one of the best shooters freaking out there, period. And one of my favorite theories about that is like he tried to shoot around the planet and make it hit the target in front of him, and like somewhere in the ballistic trajectory it like went through a wormhole and came out and back in time and just blew JFK's brains out.
Honestly,
Jerry Miculek, Jerry Miculek might have killed JFK. I'm not saying it.
I think that's the only probable. I think perhaps the most terrifying possibility is that Lee Harvey killed him and was working alone. I think that's as terrifying as the CIA did it. The fact that this fucking unstable nut job who was tossed out of the Soviet Union, that guy just went and got a job at the book depository, brought up a rifle saying it was curtains. Who the fuck brings curtains to work? And then just fired off 3 shots and killed the president a year after the Cuban Missile Crisis. To me, that's almost... It's terrifying to think that maybe the CIA did 9/11. It's equally terrifying to think some guys from the Middle East got some box cutters and were like, let's fuck some shit up. They Leroy Jenkins it.
Yeah. You sometimes you just got to pull a straight Leroy, and sometimes it works,
I've been trying to fucking find Leroy Jenkins. I want to get him on.
That's a really good question, though.
I can't find him.
He's probably set for life, because I know Blizzard was like getting him for like events and stuff like that. Back before Blizzard like completely tanked their reputation and just let everyone know that they're basically, all hail China. But I know he was basically like set up for life in like the early days of unless there's like some VH1 behind the music thing where like he somehow blew it all. But I don't think he needs the publicity anymore.
I hope there is. Like Leroy is like, I got in some heavy shit. It's finally, it's like, I hope, man, the perfect arc would have been if Leroy was there on January 6th.
Yeah,
Leroy.
If there isn't at least some buried clip, I bet
someone
it
had
exists.
to have yelled it.
I bet someone yelled it, and someone has video of it, and they are hiding on it, just praying that the FBI doesn't come knocking on their door for it.
I imagine that. I was right there. I was at the front, and I did hear China is asshole. I heard that.
Great one.
And I know that because I said it. I remember
right there and I have to say this while we still can. Taiwan number one.
Number one, yeah.
Taiwan number one, China number two.
Donald Trump, don't trust China. China is asshole.
That guy's a champion.
I didn't realize because I made this like shitty Photoshop where it's like that guy's face in front of the Chinese flag, but instead of the star with the other stars, it's just a cat's butthole. And it's just like a vector of that. But I didn't realize until I was typing it out. I was like, China is asshole. I was like, motherfucker, stands CIA. But David, keep talking. I got to go piss. I drank a ton of water before this. Not that you asked and not that anybody asked. But we'll get back to Bolivia. I know we just went on a side rant. But David,
I'll spill some time here and we'll talk about, just Red Terror in general. Because we like to think about, it's not going to escalate to that point here. We're not going to see that level of sophistication, that level of bloodlust here. And really, you just have to look at the shooting of the Patriot Prayer guy, Aaron, in Portland that happened, to see that we're already facing a more sophisticated threat. When you look at how they took him out, they had a command and control vehicle watching it. They had surveillance of the guy. They go up, they do the hit. And the most important thing of all is that they immediately have people on scene to go up to the police officers, to go up to the witnesses and start spreading misinformation and try to control that scene. And the entire time that they're controlling that scene, the actual shooter, the guy that carried out the assassination, is being covered long enough to get an interview with Vice magazine. So just so you know, while we were gone, I was talking about the shooting in Portland of the Patriot there.
What happened in 30 seconds that I came back and there was the assassin with Vice and
so just to explain how we go from the knob to the light switch and how that level of violence we're seeing down in South America can happen here very easily. When we look at the shooting of Aaron, the Patriot Prayer guy out in Portland, everything about that was a covert op. I mean, they had the surveillance done of this guy. They knew who they were going to hit. They go up to him. They take him out. And the most important thing of all there is they have a lot of people there to go up to the police, to go up to the witnesses and start spreading misinformation, try to control the scene, try to create cover. And they end up pulling the shooter out, and the shooter gets an interview with Vice magazine before he gets taken out when the marshals try to apprehend him. And everything about that, you go into unconventional warfare playbooks, you're setting up a martyr for a movement. And we're already seeing this level of sophistication come home. It's already happened here. And when we look at places like Peru and Bolivia and what essentially the CCP Belt and Road re-legitimizing these Maoist movements down there, is you now have training camps for Antifa, just a short flight down to South America, and you could be training these guys down there. Like these guys could go on an NGO, hey, we're saving the whales, we're picking up trash, we're getting our college credits or whatever. You don't know if they're actually, communists, they might be linking up with hardcore Maoists down there and getting training. And we could already be seeing a little Yemen or a little Afghanistan, whatever you want to call it, your little radical training camp. We already see that happening down there.
For lithium in Bolivia, So if I recall correctly, China has 30% of the world's rare earth metal supply, but due to the way it's concentrated, and I think its proximity to the surface, or I guess shallow depth, they control 90% of the world's trade, but only 30% of the world's supply. Is that, and we know that all rare earth metals are important in electronics, is this kind of what we're seeing with lithium, whereas it's important to batteries? Is it the same? Is it that they hold that much supply? Or, I mean, does it really matter whether or not you hold the supply or whether it's close to the surface? What matters is your market share.
Yeah, and but you can get out of it while you can. I mean, the main thing about China and just unrestricted warfare mindset in general is it's be wherever the enemy is not. If America is tied down looking over here and they're not looking at their backyard in Bolivia, that's where you're going to go poke. You're not going to meet the enemy where the maximum resistance is. You're going to go around in their backyard where they're not looking, and you're going to start messing with things there. You know, because at the end of the day, unrestricted warfare just comes down to, like, I'm not touching you, Tommy. I'm not touching you. You know, we're in the back seat going to Disney, and I'm just being an asshole about it.
Yeah, I'm not touching you. I'm not doing anything illegal. Now, do you think that, so the more I've been, I guess really only the last year I've been reading about China, and I've kind of built them up in my mind as like they're this behemoth that has no rules, but it didn't dawn on me really until like the last 24 hours. I was just thinking, and I was like, why wouldn't we be doing unrestricted warfare? And we probably are. Do we just have a better PR department that we're like, we follow the rules?
I definitely think we have people that are, aware of what it is and how to counter it. I just don't think it's put into widespread policy.
That's what I mean is that our own misperception? Does that mean, it's kind of like, the devil's greatest trick was proving the world that it didn't exist.
Yeah, so I call this kind of the black box effect, and the idea is whenever you have an adversary, whenever you have an opponent, you're thinking that they're unified, they're 100% about this strategy, they're coming at you with this, and the truth of the matter is everyone's an asshole just like everyone else. Everyone infights just like everyone else, and if you want to think about like how to be a real good agitation disruptor, you just have to remember everybody's trying to fuck over everyone else all the time. It's about identifying those actors within the enemy's black box and figuring out how to pit them against each other. Yeah. And that's what they do to us. And that's what the people that are smart, confronting China are starting to do. The big issue we have is that on an institutional level, the big battleships of our national security policy, that their turrets turn ever so freaking slowly, a lot of them just lack the balls. When it comes to, well, why aren't we training with Taiwan more? Why aren't we doing more to support Taiwan? Well, China would get angry. That's it. China would be mad, and they don't really have the cojones to step up to the plate and deal with that on the institutional level. And that's why what we're starting to see now is, the dominance of the non-state actor in national security. It's really coming down to non-state actors to be able to police this. And to an extent, I think this is the future, no matter what. I think, a state military apparatus should not be focusing all of its resources on learning how to do counterinsurgency. It's just, it should be focusing on other potential peer competitive threats. Like if you want to, settle down in a country for years, because let's face it, if you're gonna deal with the counterinsurgency situation, or you're gonna try to do nation building, you can't really raise a kid in 18 years even. What makes you think you can do it with the country? And if you bring in the military, well, guess what? You're constantly rotating these guys in and out. And by the time one guy actually gets a feel and knows everybody there, well, he's gone. He's getting out and he's doing something else. And so this is why it's kind of like the Eric Prince and the private security contractor argument kind of makes sense. Like, why wouldn't you just set up a company or a specific outfit that specializes in this region right here, and we're going to recruit people that are going to focus on this region right here, and we're going to,
100%.
And so that makes sense. That's where we should be going. But there's this dirty word called mercenary that no one likes to use.
Hey, you know what? Words come and go. It's. I think you're right. One of my favorite things to think about is like the idea that like NASA was from its birth a military branch, and there's a great like 10-minute little clip. There's a great channel. It's Dark 5. He has this whole network of channels on YouTube. Dark 5, Dark Space, Dark Footage, Dark Skies. He's just this guy who does these little 10-minute blips on history. And one of my favorites ones is like the militarization of the space shuttle. And they talk about like a lot of things they would do. They would go up and there'd be like one guy on board who also had like a CIA background on top of an Air Force background. And I think one of the exact quotes from the commander was like, on our second day, this one guy who was going to go put up this top secret thing for the DOD, he said, and it's not like they all don't know every square inch of the space shuttle. These guys are trained through and through. They know every pound of shit that's going up. They all knew that there was this thing the DOD wanted released, and that the guy says, he's like, there was like 7 of us, and on like the second day while we're up there and like the cameras are off, he says like, well, I'm gonna just go tinker around in the back. This isn't a bar. You're not at Buffalo Wild Wings and someone says, I'm gonna hit the head. Everything is choreographed. So if one guy says, I'm just gonna go tinker around in the back of the space shuttle, and he goes, and the rest of us pretended like we didn't hear him and we just kept looking forward, and this guy went out back, operated this like boom arm and released this thing. It had this like tiny rotational orbit, and it was something for what we now know as the NRO. But the point is like they all pretended like it didn't happen, and like, but here was this thing where we took this NASA, right? It's the civilian space agency, and we go up and we do this military thing because we had promised that space would be demilitarized. What smarter way to do it than to create a civilian space agency, and then the DOD puts its hand up the ass of that puppet and it goes, no, this is NASA, right? This is NASA. We don't do that. So back to what you're saying with Eric Prince, I mean, it makes sense that like the war state, the SES, whatever you want to call it, the entrenched power structure, they're going to do what they're going to do. I think that they're just dressing it up in different ways. And I mean, I'm not taking a side on it for or against it, but just objectively looking at it, I think you're probably correct. Why rotate a bunch of 18-year-old guys in and out, or even, professionals like Dale, who still eventually they leave and they go home and they go do their own thing? Why not make a company, call it a company? But in reality, it's just a branch of the DOD, and they just put a mask on it. There, Blackwater. That's not America. It's Blackwater.
Yeah. Well, and that's how it kind of used to work. Like when you look at like the East India Company, well, that's what it was. You had a charter for a company to go to this specific region, and you're going to focus on this specific region. But what happens, right? Yeah. It turns into a giant conglomerate because, with the 17th century military revolution, the structure of the international system forces you to create a military-industrial complex.
Another side note, Neil deGrasse Tyson, in his book Accessory to War, he talks about early on, like the explorers, right? They would go, they would be like, we're going out to like, they'd paint them as like missionaries. We're going out to spread the word.
Jesuits,
we're going out to spread the word of God. And then within that group of people, and a lot of them actually thought that's what the trip was. It's not that they were all playing Secret 2. They weren't read in. So
best asset is the one that doesn't know they're an asset.
Yeah, I remember that's one thing you said in the last episode, and that stuck with me. But a lot, so like let's say there's 100 people on the ship. 90% of them would actually think that we're going to spread the word of God. 10 of them would be like, what we are is we're actually cartographers, and we're mapping. We're building maps, and they're astronomers and stuff. And then out of those 10, one would actually be a military asset. So 10 of them think they all think we're Jesuits, but the reality is we're cartographers. It happens again. It's Inception. There's another one inside of that goes, they think we're cartographers, but what they actually were, it was a military scouting mission. What better way to scout out than to, if you send me and David to North Korea, we're a gay couple, we've got fanny packs. And we're like, oh my God, look, it's Pyongyang. Look at that. And we're
fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
We're just fabulous. Just taking pictures, right? You have long, beautiful hair. I have my crazy sweatshirts on. We're just we're just a gay couple from America. We're taking Polaroids, and we come back, and then we do a dead drop, and there you go. You're welcome, CIA. What better way to do it?
And so this goes back to my argument. Whenever I break this down, the difference between an intelligence agency and a church is really just a matter of secularism. Because back in the day, it really just is. You have a priestly class of people that are presumed to be so educated in how the world should run that they are given license to lie, cheat, steal, murder, you name it, and even topple the heads of state to ensure that the world runs that way. And before we had intelligence agencies, I mean, there was always some kind of diplomatic service and intelligence apparatus in between the military and diplomacy. And before we had the intelligence in the State Department to kind of do that, it was kind of this mixture of you had the church, or you might even, you could use a circus, for example. You could, roll in a bunch of, back then you had these giant caravans of people, and then later giant trains. And so you could move a lot of equipment that way. You can move people in that way. They use this for, entertainment all the time. Like you watch the movie, what was it, Argo, where they're talking about, that whole, operation, so it was always this kind of mixture between the church and entertainment. And now what do we see? It's intelligence agencies and entertainment and Mockingbird kind of class. Yeah. But it's the same thing. That's why, in the alt media circle, we refer to the whole thing as like the cathedral or the blue cathedral, because really it's just a church. It's a secular church.
Now, do you think that, have you read The Pentagon's Brain, DARPA, by Annie Jacobson?
I have not, but that is on my list. That's some next level stuff.
It's a fucking fantastic read. And I've been trying to find more about an agency that she mentions at the end of the book, and I've been watching lectures on her. IARPA, the Intelligence Advanced Research Project Agency, which is the CIA's, which was set up with DARPA because they're like, hey, and basically their whole thing is like artificial intelligence transfer.
Skynet, yeah.
It's fucking, and like the interviewer asked her, they're like, and Annie, like, what do you think IARPA is? And she was like, I think we'll know in about 40 to 45 years. And I was like, God damn it. Point is though, have you ever heard of that thing where I think it was DARPA? They set up, because DARPA's whole thing is about, I love how far ahead DARPA is, because their whole thing is the way to control the way to control who rules the world is to control like what world we live in. So their whole thing is like, yes, build weapon systems so that the United States can't be taken by surprise. It was made in the weeks after Sputnik. I never knew that. DARPA goes all the way back to Eisenhower. It was made in the weeks following Sputnik, and the idea is that so that we are never taken by surprise again. You could argue that it's worked, for better or worse, with some exceptions. You could argue that it's worked. We've never
because when the Manhattan Project was compromised, you had to set up a new structure. Yeah.
We've never been truly taken by surprise like we were on Sputnik. I wouldn't say that 9/11 was that. It was, but it wasn't this coup, this technological coup. So, but the point is their whole thing is that we go so far ahead that we create. It's, if I want to control which app dominates, whether it's David's or Dale's app, the real way to control it is to build the iPhone App Store, and I create the world and the parameters from within which you have to operate in. So everything you do, even if one of you does a coup on the other, you are still existing within the platform that I have created, and I know
Hegelian dialectic. Yep.
I know what the platform is, and I know you can't step outside of that. That's so what you do is you create this technology, and some would even argue, and then after years you leak it to the other side so that then they start building it because you already know how it works. And the whole thing is we build the ARPANET, stealth technology, GPS was the Russian one, GLONASS, whatever the fuck it is. Point is, I'm going way off into the weeds, is they created this thing called LifeLog, and it was they said in only the way DARPA can, like the late 90s and early 2000s, they were like, in the future, like everyone will be communicating online and we'll have profiles and you'll be able to update things with, and this is back when it took 10 minutes to load an image. But
LifeLog knows when we poop.
Yeah, they created LifeLog, and LifeLog was like, it was this program and it ran for several years. And then the day they took it offline, because they were like, what? It's like the Onion video that was like the CIA is just like, they're just applauding Facebook because they're like, you know what? We used to have to send agents out to get people. Now they just upload it exactly where they are. They status updates. They give us their coordinates. They check into what store they're in. They're like, we really just, they're, I think in the video, one of them goes, I mean, I just really couldn't be prouder of Agent Mark Zuckerberg. But this whole rant is, they created LifeLog, and then the day the program ended, it ran for like 5 years. I mean, the day it ended, The next day, Facebook
Boom,
went online.
here it is.
The next day, Facebook went online. The next fucking day, Facebook went online. I forget. Oh yeah, back to what you were saying, Jesuits and entertainment and shit. It kind of seems like that's what it is, right? Here's Facebook.
It is exactly that. It is definitely is. We're going back to how did you do the in between of military and diplomacy state? Well, the church doesn't really matter. I mean, the Catholic Church still exists as kind of a banking apparatus, but it doesn't have moral authority, so to say.
Yeah.
It's all national security. What is the church? National security. That's the church.
Yeah.
And as long as you have that national security, you can hide behind the state secrecy privilege. And if you have the state secrecy privilege, well, then, what can't you get away with? The next thing you know, it's Lucky Luciano, the mob selling heroin and the whole Operation Gladio and things just devolve into cocaine cowboys, Knights of Malta stuff from there, because why the hell wouldn't you?
Yeah. When you can hide behind, again, I think what Annie Jacobsen said in her book, Area 51, which had a rather lackluster and odd ending, and everyone kind of shits on her for that. I love Annie Jacobsen as an author. 5 books: Phenomena, DARPA, The Pentagon's Brain, Area 51. Fuck, what are the other ones? I'm forgetting them all. It doesn't matter. But she talks about how, I think it was under Vannevar Bush, they started like this practice where they called it Born Black, and it wasn't a statement on race, but rather a statement on classifications. That was a shitty joke. I was hoping you'd laugh, but you didn't. But that's going to go down in the bloopers. But it was this idea
I'm sorry.
No, it's, you know what? Friendship over. Dale, new best friend.
I'm sorry. I just thought we were about to start talking about like little raised child soldiers. They're completely off the record, and I was getting hyped up for that.
But the idea was that it was this. It was this terminology, and it's like, I think even like the classification itself is classified, and the idea is that, because if you call something top secret, you at least know it's top secret. It's this thing that you don't even know about the classification, and it's called Born Black, meaning that it's a program that will never be declassified ever.
Yeah.
I mean, unless the state falls and you get some like Operation Alsace and you go into Germany and find everything. But the idea is that's how you truly get the creative juices flowing in scientists. Some Unit 731 shit is you go, never be, not 50 years, not 100 years. Your great-great-grandkids won't be ashamed of you. No one will ever know. Born
Do
Black.
Whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah. And they said, the Manhattan Project was supposed to be the first one. No, sorry. It was in light of the Manhattan Project that they realized they needed to go even darker. And she argues that that's what Bob Lazar's thing was at S4, was Born Black. No one will ever know. And but yeah, that's Dr. You said cocaine cap. Why wouldn't you? If you are forever shrouded in a state supported and mandated and funded metaphorical invisibility cloak, if you have Harry Potter's invisibility cloak, how long is the gap between you're beating up bullies and they can't see you to you're going in the girls' locker room? Like, how long is that gap? 10 minutes?
Yeah, it's like, I grew up in a country where like I turn on CNN and I get to watch like, countries getting like demolished for fun, and I get to watch all of this drug warfare being pushed on my people. Like, if I got the chance, hell yes, I'm going to take opium straight to the people that brought it to our country. I'm going to shoot it right into their veins, and I'm going to wait until they go through withdrawals, and then I'm going to interrogate them. Like, let's talk then. Like, why not?
Yeah, you want to go full hardcore. Yeah, fuck that waterboarding shit. Yeah.
If you're okay with this, I'm okay with this. Exactly. Your terms are accepted. That's the way I tend to think.
Yeah. It's this. And by the way, Dave, if, as I said last time, you got to throw your elbows if you want to go take this direction, because my mind just spits out shit.
No, I enjoy going down these rabbit holes.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's one thing where it's like, is it something that would it be, it's fuck, who said it? I think it was Einstein. It might have been, no, who's the other guy? Leo Szilard. And I'm listening to this book called The Button, and it's by a former defense secretary, all about nuclear posturing. I'm trying to get him on the podcast. He hasn't responded. I can only imagine there are red flags raising somewhere as I keep emailing people who are involved in the nuclear triad. But
How about those launch codes?
Hey, for the record, how about those launch codes? Am I right? 69-420 or any variation of that. If you could just tell me.
Yeah.
For the record, Deep State, I'm more than willing to. I am pro American Empire, so it's fine. You don't need to kill me. But the point is that I think it was Leo Szilard said that we needed to give up the A-bomb before we dropped it. And I think his quote was, because it will be a lot harder to convince the world after we use it that a power that was able to construct it in secrecy and then use it unilaterally would be trusted with it. And no one's ever going to be convinced of it. And the one thing that popped in my mind is it's kind of like the beginning of Lord of the Rings. Like, Isildur, destroy it! And he looks down at the volcano and goes, no. That's the one. It's like, America, get rid of it, and we're holding it, and all of a sudden we're going, this is the biggest dick that's ever been swung on the planet. No.
That is the story of our blue blood elite. Essentially, is this idea of we could easily go down the route of decentralization and multipolar balance of power politics, and they would lose some control. But, so many of these people, even the ones that have done some horrible stuff, so many of them are just unknown anyway because no one cares, and people care more about throwing out like nebulous deep state terms and pointing at puppets. So many of these people could retire to Seychelles, which is where most of them tend to go anyway. It's off the coast of Africa. It's just a little island. There's a drone base there. Eric Prince has a house there. Anyone that's like somebody coming out of like the CIA and is about to retire, they're going to get a cool place in Seychelles. And yeah, that's the golden parachute. And we could, if it was up to me, I'd just take all these people, right? And this was just pure fun for me, is I would like to stick them all there with nothing but like Napoleonic era artillery and just see who wins that game of King of the Hill on that island. I'd like to turn it into a reality show. But barring that, these people could all bail out to places like Seychelles. They could buy a boat. They could spend the rest of their lives fishing and just, we could start to get the national security infrastructure and policy back on track while they just, they fade out and they have a nice little happy exile. But, they're compromised. They can't back down. They don't want to back down. Some mix either or that. And so now we're locked in this quasi conflict with a bunch of quislings that want to be in bed with China. And that's kind of the issue.
Now, do you think that, I've thought about this a lot. I'm like, why, when you make your billion, why don't you go bail out to your own private section of Hawaii? And I think it's the same reason that Tom Brady doesn't stop with one Super Bowl and he just signed again to say here.
Once you're in the game, like, why would you want to leave the game, right?
That's the thing, is I think the game is it's one of the Koch brothers. I think it's the one that died. He said back when I was in Valdosta, so 2010, I remember reading the quote. And someone's like, what are you going for? Like, you already have 21 billion. What's the 22nd billion for? And I think his quote was, the guy is a demon, but his quote was, I'm going to keep riding this bike till the wheels fall off. And it was like, there is no goal. I'm playing this fucking game. I'm Tom Brady. I'm going to keep throwing bullets and trying to get another Lombardi trophy for no other reason to get another. It's the game. It's the wolf that's going to keep hunting until it's dead, because it's just, that's what it's here for. It's here to fight.
And if they would do that, we would respect the hell out of them. But the biggest problem we have is you get so many of these people that, Stanley McChrystal is a good example of it. He's now come home and, it's like he's been injected with the Bill Gates, like he's been turned into a version of Bill Gates. He's putting on the sweater vest now. He's running, this DARPA AI thing that's supposed to be helping track down extremists. And basically, he's, and apparently it sucks. Apparently their stuff is whack. Apparently they gave him the busted version. So just Stanley, 10-piece McChicken nobody ain't doing shit right now. But the point being, they're gearing up for this, but they don't want to ride the shit until the wheels come off. They want to come home back here, put on the sweater vest, and be like, listen, we had our time of having fun. You're never going to get to play in the game. We've already, negotiated this out. Here's your sweater vest, and just chill. There's no more game. The game's over. That's what they want you to think.
But even that, though, I think the sweater vest is just the next level. It's like Gandalf turning into Gandalf the White. I think the sweater vest is just. But the point is we'll get back.
Looking harmless.
We'll get back into the sweater vest in a second. I want to explore that. But it's the idea that I don't think even the sweater vest is. I mean, look at like Warren Buffett. Look at Kissinger. Look at Gates. They're not finished. They've put on this form of, now we're just doing these philanthropic things. But the thing is like, I don't think that it's kind of like Family Guy, where Lois's dad, Mr. Peter Schmidt, who's like a trillionaire, he retires. And within a week, he starts getting like dementia. He doesn't know what to do. He wakes up late. He can't find his medicine. He's, he's just a pushover. He's a total beta. And they realize that Mr. Peter Schmidt is dying. And so they drag him back, kind of like, I mean, literally like dragging someone back to like the river. They pull him back into his office in his like high rise in Manhattan, and they like slap him around, and he starts coming to again. And they're like, Daddy, we need you to make a deal. Like, we need you to make another $1 billion deal. And he starts coming back, and his powers start coming back. And he's like, fucking minorities. He's like single women welfare queens. He starts coming back.
That's exactly what's happened to our national security infrastructure.
But the point is like these guys, they start to come back, and they're like, he's like, and he realizes like that's what he wants to do. He wants to ride it until the wheels fall off. I think that it's an illusion to put on the sweater vest. It makes us think, and maybe that's what you were saying, makes us think, he's done, he's playing. But I think Bill Gates is sharpening his fangs as much as he was in the 90s. But now he's gotten smarter. He knows how to. It's like Bane, you fight like a younger man, nothing held back. Admirable, but mistaken. Like, I think that's it. Maybe he probably think tanked it or focus grouped it, and they're like, if you put on a sweater.
That is it. I mean, you're not wrong at all, but I think it's kind of like a half and half of what you first said of like the mental degradation combined with, it started out with, hey, let's put on the sweater vest. Let's look non-threatening, right? We're going to look non-threatening. We're going to make everything nice, soft, and fluffy. Nice, it's going to be great. And it's kind of like the fact that they're spending so much time pretending to be that they're going soft. They're getting that dementia. Okay. And that is why, like, when we see them try to bring this counterinsurgency home, this information warfare home, they're so sloppy and fuck ass with it, believing most of their own propaganda, because they're so used to this, we're playing this soft game mindset, that they are kind of losing it, and they are really being put into these circles, where everyone in that circle is trying to be non-threatening. Okay. So they're making each other weaker, and at the same time they're telling us we can't become stronger and do what they should be doing, and that's kind of the issue there. Okay, I've got
an idea for this. Maybe it's in Michael Pillsbury's book, The 100-Year Marathon. It's kind of like the grandfather of Brigadier General Robert Spalding's Stealth War. It's obviously all about China. But he talks about something from the Warring States period, and it's, you never ask the weight of the emperor's cauldron. And if I recall it correctly, I'm sure you know this, but at least for the listeners, that's a way of asking. It's obviously not a saying we use, but it'd be like if we're in a building, let's play King of the Hill, and you're in the penthouse, and I'm on the lower floors, and I'm rising every year. I'm moving up a couple, 5 more floors. I get another bathroom. I'm moving up, but you're in the penthouse right on Central Park. I'm never going to, and I'm, as is, with lions and gorillas, as with everything, the young buck is always eyeing the guy on top. Mm-hmm. He wants to be in charge, right? I'm sure Kamala is going to kill Biden one day, right? She's going to take over, right?
That's why they're so scared. That's why they have fences around the Capitol.
Exactly. Dave. Goddamn right. But eventually, and I'm going to get buddy with David, and you're going to take me under your wing because I'm useful to you. But you're not stupid. I'm coming for you. You're, let's say you're 30 years older than me. I want to take over. Well, as I'm coming up, asking the way to the Emperor's Cauldron would be the equivalent of, let's say you're on the 100th floor and I finally made it up to the 99th floor. I know that I'm next in line. I'm never going to ask you, how strong are the locks on your doors? Because now you are going to go, he's now a threat to me, and you're going to send down your kill squad. You're going to send down your Delta. So you never ask the weight of the Emperor's Cauldron until until you are no longer a threat to me. The only time I will ever ask for the weight, what's the weight of the Emperor's Cauldrons, David, how strong are the locks on your door, is when you've got a Delta team, but I've got 10 Delta teams. And I now know I'm now the king. I'm taking over. This is Lion King. This is Mufasa and Scar. I'm pushing you off, right? Mm-hmm. You never ask the weight of the Emperor's Cauldrons. So let's war game that. Is the movement of like a McChrystal or a Bill Gates or whatever, is this actually a psyop from within the deep state? Are there these new young bucks, these Eric Princes, maybe a Musk or a Bezos, and they're coming up and they don't want to ask Bill Gates or McChrystal or Kissinger the weight of their cauldrons. So instead of asking the weight of your cauldrons, instead of going, David, how strong are the locks in your penthouse? I'm going, hey man, there's a really nice penthouse down the street if you want to go stay there. Are they going, hey, you guys go back home, put on these sweater vests, and you guys take over the home front? In reality, what they're doing is they're getting the old guys out of the way, and now the killers are going out in the world. That's a really long fucking analogy.
I get where you're going with that. And the way I would actually agree with that is what we saw the first term of Trump, he seemed to have this. It
just popped into my head. There's a much simpler way to say it. You're putting your dad in a nursing home so you can become the patriarch. God damn it, that was so much easier.
But you got there. No, you went through history.
He's got the spirit.
Yeah, you got the spirit. But that's kind of what we saw out of Trump, and that's partially why he failed. Is he was very much of the mindset like, hey, you guys, most of you guys have won the game. Most of you guys who probably should be in jail. Most people don't even know your names anyway. So how about we break a little bit of peace. We divide some stuff up. You guys take your winnings. You have a great retirement. Hey, if you want to stay in the game on the Patriot side, we'll find something for you to do. If not, have a nice retirement.
Get rid of Epstein. Hey, bygones be bygones.
Yeah, and so that was kind of like Trump's mindset going in. As for whether or not that's still happening, like for me, at a certain point, watching China's dominance of things, it kind of comes back to I was just pretending to be a retarded argument. Like at a certain point, I have to sit here. It's like, what? Maybe if like whoever's running Delta, shows up, at my house in like a dress, like the cross-dresser from MASH, and he knocks on my door and he asks me out on a real nice date, and he's like, listen, I'm gonna tell you about how we're pretending to be retarded this whole time, and we've got this in the bag. Don't worry about it. Like, okay, if something that wild happens, all right, fuck it, I'm in. All right, y'all want to get down like that? We all want to just pretend to be retarded. I'll pretend to be retarded. Like I'll go straight back. I'll pretend like I'm 18 again, and we'll have at it.
Yeah.
But right now, when I'm looking at the geopolitics situation, like, it doesn't feel like we're winning. From what I covered in Bolivia, which I tried to get that in the beginning.
We can go back to it. Sorry.
Well, I tried. I just wanted to get it all in the beginning, so we had that nice chunk there for whoever's interested in that. Because I knew we were just going to end up going down a whole lot of rabbit holes, but also like in Crimea, Brad Johnson, who's former CIA station chief, he has a little channel on YouTube himself. He's a little bit more on the Ukrainian sympathetic than I am. But, he's even calling out that, hey, like what I was saying for a while, it looks like Turkey and Azerbaijan, like, the elements of the cabal that thought they were going to antagonize Russia and retain Crimea, even though Crimea is a core strategic interest. Russia needs those warm water ports, and they have the most assets to hold it. It's just, there's no getting around that mathematical equation. So now they're trying to create this pincer movement on Crimea using Turkey, a resurgent Turkey and Azerbaijan, and you're hearing them raise issues with the Tatars there, which were basically Ukrainians that converted to the Ottomans, become second-class citizens. And as Brad was pointing out, like I was saying about the Azov battalions that are like hardcore Nazis, they, wanted that side to win, and the Holodomor. I mean, you can't hardly blame them. I mean, everyone was killing everybody back then. But it was also the Tatars, the Ottoman Islamic kind of groups there that is considered traitors by the other Ukrainians. They were also on the pro-German side helping round up the Jews. So you have this whole clusterfuck of things going on in Crimea right now that could kick off into a shooting war. God knows when. I know Ukraine was starting to say if they met resistance from Russia, they would back off. But Ukraine really wants to storm and retake Crimea, and you can't blame them for wanting to. I just don't think it's realistic in any way. And Turkey is just kind of providing that pincer pressure to make it seem like it can happen. And when you look at the kind of guys that are running our foreign policy, how naive they were with the Ukraine crisis the first time, how they try to back this Navalny guy in Russia, even though everyone sees him for everyone calls the Bolivia thing a CIA op. Really, I wish CIA was running something there, but we can all see Navalny's a Brookings Institution CIA op, and they're still trying to push that. It's like our foreign policy establishment has no concept of history, and they're completely of the mindset, hey, fuck all this history, man. Why can't just let bygones be bygones? Signed a deal. It's about progress. Yeah. Because we literally don't think about history anymore, and if we do, we're thinking about how to rewrite history. Mm-hmm. Which the rest of the world, they're not down with that. They've seen that game play out before. They're kind of pissed off about that.
Now, what's in this? This is a retarded statement, but do you think that maybe for the first time ever, technology is moving so fast, right? And every year it's moving faster. It's not just that it used to be every 10 years something happened. Now it's every 1 year. Like the rate of acceleration is increasing. Ray Kurzweil. The gaps between the rates of acceleration increase are shortening. The entire thing is accelerating. It's accelerating. Derivatives of the acceleration are accelerating. Everything is going faster. Could you, and this is the first thing, and now that I think about it, it's kind of weird, but the first time I thought about this is when I was in like 8th grade. And I thought that, everything is there are always empires. America's an empire. And you don't want to think about that when you're little because America's different. But America's an empire.
It's possible we could go back to Thomas Jefferson and we could once again be the empire of liberty. There's nothing stopping us from being that again, and I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah, sure.
As a libertarian nationalist, I'm still okay with an empire as long as we're not being bitches about it.
Sure. But let's call America an empire, and it's argued that the empire is declining. Maybe you could tell. Maybe we're just getting older, and maybe when everyone gets to 30, they start thinking this, and they've thought this for the last 10,000 years. But again, Tim Dillon of all people, Tim Dillon brought up a good point. And he's talking to his buddy Ray Kump, who's this like 500-pound fat guy at the list, but who's super smart, and kind of. But he was talking about, he was like, never in the waning stages of an empire has an empire had a military this dominated. And that's not to say that there haven't been massive militaries before and they always get spread thin. That's a given. But there's never been a military this dominant in its waning stages. And as I always bring up, we're $27 trillion in debt. It's ones and zeros. It's not real. Who has the guns? Who has the bombers? Who has the supply lines? Who has the fuel lines? Who has the ways? Who has the forward operating bases? Sure, we draw lines on a map, but if you would just get rid of all borders and color code nations, which nation has the most military bases around the world? We're running the chessboard, right? So. Yeah. We have all of this, and I've brought this up with you before, is like, I don't think we're ever paying back our debt. I think what we've done is we've used money from China. In a way, they've built our military, and then when they come knocking, we're going to say, fuck off, you and what army? Our army, our $27 trillion army. We've built up this whole thing to where I think we're at this odd spot, and we're especially getting, and it's coming down to the wire. But we're also at this spot with, you could look at Boston Dynamics and whatever the fuck they're cooking up in DARPA and IARPA, right? Just like Blackwater.
Metal Gear coming straight out. Yeah, some solid state shit.
Just Blackwater being like a front for the U.S. military. Google is, I would imagine, probably a front for an intelligence agency. So let's not call these independent corporations. Let's call these intelligence agencies. Let's just say Google's part of the CIA. We're getting to this very important point, and it's just like Ace Combat 7. In Ace Combat 7...
Great soundtrack. I've yet to play it, but I love the soundtrack. But all the games are great. Just got to throw that out there.
It's the only Ace Combat I've ever played, but I've played it like 100 times too. I love it. But with Ace Combat 7, I think there's actually a very important point, and that they get to a point where they're leading with like these AI drones. And the drones, sure, they can do things like they can withstand G-forces that other people can. They can work in swarms. But the real importance is when you lose an ace, When I have a Dale Comstock on my team and Dale gets killed, I mean, how much experience did we just lose with losing that guy? When your Tom Brady retires, well, what happens when you can make an artificial mind? And what they do in the game is their equivalent of Dale. There's an ace, and his name's Mihaly, Mihaly. They scan his brain, and they incorporate that into drones. And so the idea is Mihai can take down 10 people. Well, what if we have 100,000 drones with his brain? And it doesn't work. Spoiler, they end up killing the drone program. They manage to kill it right before like the uploading begins, because if they did, it would be the end of history. Like the drones would take over. They would all be skilled with the best. Instead of having one Michael Jordan, you'd have a whole team of Michael Jordans. So we're getting to this point where if we can create things like robots, like Boston Dynamics, think iRobot, if you can do that and you can scan into their brains, Dale Comstock, and you can have 100,000 of these robots that don't question orders, that run on solar power, all of a sudden we're in a very unique spot where never in the world before has like one group of people been able to impose their will on the whole world. And there's no friction. There's no chain of command. There's no, I'm not following that order. There's no My Lai massacre. It's just machines that take the order. We're at this very weird spot where, I don't know where the fuck I'm going with this, but where it seems that we're at the end stage of an empire, but for the first time ever, back to what you were saying about history, don't learn history. Maybe we're at a spot that truly is such a new frontier that, you don't have to not learn history. If you don't learn history, those who don't learn history are bound to repeat it. Well, those who don't learn, cartography are bound to repeat the same mistakes. But what happens when the first time in history we're not just going across the ocean to a new landmass, but instead we're going to Mars? The same lessons might not be applicable. So what if those who don't pay attention to history are bound to repeat it? Well, what if we're entering this new realm where old history doesn't apply to new history? Does that make sense?
Then we go into.
I'm sorry.
Well, then we go into the old saying that the generals always preparing for the last war that they fought, rather than the next one. I'm butchering the phrase, but that's the saying. And I think there's variables and there's constants in anything. If you pick up Sun Tzu's The Art of War, you're going to read a few things that are probably never going to be useful or in your life whatsoever, but you're going to see some insights about human nature and just general political strategy that, as long as there are humans with free will, you're going to want to be thinking about that. Now, if we end up going to some transhuman, no free will AI kind of thing, or you just have like these super indoctrinated soldiers that don't question orders. I got like a 45-minute short story, just got put up on like the 15th, called I believe like Down with the Dead Men or something like that. It's a Warhammer 40K short about what's called the Death Corps of Krieg. And these guys pretty much just get pumped. They have this massive, these guys exist to be cannon fodder for industrial trench warfare, and this is like the blackest pill you could do. Like if you listen to this 45-minute short story at the beginning of any day you're about to have to deal with some tough shit, there's nothing that's going to happen that's going to be worse than this outcome, because it's just they are 3D printing people, and if you have too much an independent thought, you're going to be a reject, and you're going to be used as a live fire training target in drills before some regiment of the non-rejects gets sent off to a battle that they know they are going to lose, and they are literally just there for attrition. They are there to make the enemy expend more. And that's it. It's this is why I love Warhammer 40K, because they've taken damn near anything we can think about, and they've taken it to the ideological extreme. And it's written by military historians and people that love strategy and stuff like that. So there's tons of good writers and stuff, but they explore a lot of this stuff, and their thoughts on AI. I kind of have to stick to, because they don't call it artificial intelligence. They call it abominable intelligence. And if there is any suspect that there is some AI around, that thing has to be destroyed. That is priority number one. It needs to go. It can't be allowed to exist, because in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, it takes place after everything's already gone to crap. So basically humanity builds this giant empire, and at the height of their technology, AI and various things that we don't know because history is kind of foggy and murky, then causes the collapse of a galactic empire that humanity built. And then basically you have this immortal being that existed because 8,000 BC in the Anatolia region of Turkey, 1,000 shamans had like a vision, stoned apes essentially had a vision that, hey, the hegemony of the galaxy is about to break down. We're about to have threats coming in from all sides, and it's literally going to be a battle just for humanity to survive in the galaxy. And then basically 1,000 shamans commit ritual suicide and to create this one godlike psychic being that can kind of lead humanity to do that. And so we go from the stoned ape to the warring ape, and that's why like every 40K story starts the same way. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And you can say that about the future, but you open up any history book, it's the reason it says that's because war is really all there's ever been.
Yeah, it's the only constant, right?
Constant competition, man.
Yeah, man. Maybe fuck. And like, are we going to transcend that? Are we going to be able to transcend that? David, I've got to pee again. Do you mind monologuing?
Oh, go for it. I'll rant about 40K, and I'll convert people to my church. I'm calling it the Inquisitorial Order of St. John Adams Asymmetric Studies and Applications. And we're going to be thinking about these things. We're going to be talking about the greatness of the God Emperor of mankind who slumbers deep beneath the Tibet Plateau as he works on engineering a bunch of genetically modified super soldiers or whatever the hell we're going to end up seeing pop out in the future, whether they be some kind of AI Skynet Terminator thing or, modified transhumans. We don't know how the first iteration is going to go, and it could be bad. Okay. There's no getting around the fact that we are entering kind of this unknown territory. And it really should scare everybody that everyone's just openly saying, oh yeah, we're doing gene therapy. We're talking about making super soldiers. We're talking about making AI and drone swarms. These are all things that should really concern us. But, right now life's just good. We're fat, we're happy. McDonald's isn't sold out, so we're eating. Why would you worry about anything else? Why would you worry about this other than like smoking a joint? You're listening to Joe Rogan and you listen to Elon Musk say like, oh yeah, this could happen one day. But, we're not really thinking about how it's going to, hit us in the face. And I don't really think any of us are really prepared for how it's about to hit us in the face because, you can turn on, as I said the last time I was on this show, if you go to Brookings Institute, which has a YouTube channel, you go to Center for Strategic and International Studies, they have a YouTube channel. You go to the Council on Foreign Relations, they have a YouTube channel, and you can watch all their conferences, all their think tanks. They bring in all these, nerds with PhDs and everything. And if you listen to the rhetoric that they talk about, their I wouldn't say knowledge, but lack of knowledge on the history of the subjects that they're trying to write policy for and be experts of. We exist now in just a totally incompetent republic full of people that are, their only concept of these threats that's coming down to us comes from like watching Elon smoking a joint on Joe Rogan going, oh yeah, the singularity could happen one day and it could change everything. But, McDonald's still has food. We don't have to think about the hard shit right now. And that's kind of where I think we're at. Welcome back, Tommy.
Thank you very much. And if I do say so myself, that's a fantastic hoodie I'm wearing, Tommy. Thank you, Tommy. Where can I find one? You can find it on my merch store. Thank you very much. But you ordered the gaudy one, which I'm excited to see you get.
And I might be showing my cousins this, so we got to keep that on the
gaudy.
And that's classified right now.
Classified the special access program, sir. I'm going to have to ask you to give me a full lineage of your family tree, and are you loyal to America and TPC? That's the end goal. Is TPC becoming a nation?
Right. That would be great. And for the record, just to plug one time, because I got to do it. Definitely get the merch. Look at the hoodies. I can't tell you about the merchandise that I'm considering because I'm planning to use it to surprise and shock the hell out of somebody that just would not expect to see me. Yeah, I'm shock and awe by other means. But, check out the merch. Check out the hoodies. It's cool stuff.
Thank you very much. It's you can't ask the weight of your cousin's cauldrons.
Right.
You have to come in. You have to come in with surprise. They can't know that the weapon is coming because they can't prepare for it. I did make a badass one. It's another design I made 2 years ago, and I was trying to design it as a snowboard for when I was in graphic design school. I wanted to make a 2001: A Space Odyssey snowboard. And it starts at the bottom, and it's got this like chimp, and it's like screaming, and it's just this like, it's the perfect image of just like primitive rage. And then in the background I have DNA molecules, and then on the sides are cave paintings, like actual cave paintings that like I downloaded high-res images from like these caves in France, and then I converted them to like vectors, and they're lining up the sides, so it's these actual old cave paintings. And then I did them in a chronological order, so as you get higher up they get to more and more recent, and then written in between just like this one. So this one is like Vitruvian Man, right? And it's just kind of like monkeys in a barrel type shit, and there's DNA strands, and then it's written in the Atlantis alphabet from Disney. I wrote the no mind, no body, no life, no death. It's some ancient mantra. I did kind of the same thing with the 2001: A Space Odyssey, but I wrote in cuneiform, which is obviously the earliest written language, but I can't for the life of me remember what
Praise be to Thoth, man.
Yeah, but for
Thoth, I forget how it's pronounced, but
well, I don't remember what I wrote, but I remember it was something psychedelic. But it's this thing, and so it's this chimp screaming with DNA molecules and cave paintings getting more and more modern, and then there's something written in cuneiform, and then the whole thing slowly starts to kind of like fade, and then it comes up, and it's the moon. And then the other side of the moon, it's like stars, and that gets darker, and then it's just HAL 9000 at the top. It's this thing. It's like
I can't let you do that. Yeah,
dude, it's like a 12,000 by like 36,000 pixel image. It's the actual.
What is the file size?
The actual file. So when it was totally like when I made, because that was one that I made parts of it on my iPad, but that was the first one that I ever had to truly make on a laptop because it just couldn't handle it. The total file, it was something like, I want to say like 70 or 80 gigs.
Holy.
You could zoom in, dude. You could zoom in down to each cave painting, and it was like high. I mean, you could zoom all the way in, and it would be enough to be a good high.
Dude, you're like going Alan Watts, the theory of everything, designing these esoteric.
It was, dude, but that's the thing is, and well, that's why I like these, is because just to plug my own merch. When I originally designed a lot of these, I designed them 8192 by 8192. I mean, these are super high res images, and it's not just like a bullshit kind of scaled up thing like a picture of an apple. Like, how much detail are you really going to see? You know, like an 8K image of an apple is, I mean, it's neat, but I mean, what are you really trying to capture there? I made these because I used to make images like 1000 by 1000 pixels, and I'd make them super intricate. But then I thought, like, what if I made an 8K thing, and you could just keep zooming in, and it's all manufactured. So you can go in and just find all these little tiny things. But I mean, like, point is yeah, I like to make this super intricate shit. But this 2001: A Space Odyssey one, I kept trying to like upload it onto a sweatshirt, and like the website would crash. So I finally had to like compress it, unfortunately, down to like 500 megabytes instead of 80 gigabytes. But even that was like the biggest file I had. But the point is I made that one, and that one is going to be dope as fuck. I uploaded it. But yeah, shamelessly plugging my own merch. It's all original art. I made it. This isn't some buy the merch for my YouTube channel, and it's just some bullshit. There's your logo on a sweatshirt. These are all originally designed by me. They're insane. They're fucking, I mean, they're fantastic. It's not even just gold. What that is, that's the actual printing is that's an actual scan of like Da Vinci's parchment.
I'm going to, when my package gets here, I have a little USB microscope, and now I'm going to be like looking for the Da Vinci Code and the.
Well, I'll have to kill you. But the point is, yeah, shameless plug for my merch. Fuck, where was I going with that? But it seems like, and this is what I messaged you the other day, and I've been kind of having this like thought exercise with a friend of mine. And mind you, I don't know anything about Bitcoin, so I'm going to be just like you earlier saying, like, you know, you don't know anything about, like, you know, you're not an engineer, you don't know what lithium is for. Full disclosure, I have no idea what I'm talking about. But I had this idea that he originally seeded the thought in my mind, but he doesn't think it's truth. But I've taken his thought, and now I'm trying to imagine how it's real. And it's that is Bitcoin. He thinks that Bitcoin's a honeypot, which I thought was an interesting take. It's a honeypot by the NSA to find out when another nation has achieved quantum supremacy. So it's just like we have I think it was called a Hotel. Hotel was like the chain of satellites we had that detected a nuclear flash. So we could find when someone else built a nuke. They would, just like kind of like an alien species searching the skies, they're going to look for that radio dome or that radio sphere. We put up these satellites, and they would look for nuclear flashes. And they're like, hey, look, they've achieved nuclear bombs. It's time to go give them some freedom, right? I wonder if Bitcoin is a way to sort of scan the world for who is developing a comparable quantum computer to the United States, the existing deep state that controls the world. Is that what Bitcoin is? It's the ultimate lure. If you can hack it, you could be a trillionaire. Is that what it is? Is it a giant net?
Thinking about that, there's a lot of people that have thought that, you could monitor through mining who is actually at the forefront of that. So there's definitely ways you can use that to tell, hey, who's got the processing power. And that's when we kind of get into, we see like the video card wars, and we kind of see people ramping up and building these crazy mining rigs. But I don't necessarily think that Bitcoin was designed as a honey trap, just because I think to this day, the mainstream establishment seems so kind of blindsided by it. And if you kind of want to study like what their idea of a controlled version of that, like I told you before, XRP Ripple, I think that's the tag, but Ripple, that's basically their idea of this. Hey, this is decentralized, the state approved cryptocurrency, the state insured cryptocurrency. And I know for a fact that that's kind of that's the church's kind of forerun and trying to figure out, hey, how can we figure out this market and how to run it. Now, is it possible we go like way beyond like 18 levels up, and Satoshi, what's his face, the guy that designed Bitcoin, like had this in mind the whole time? It's like, I'm going to design this Bitcoin thing, and next thing you know, whoever has the secret quantum computer is going to start mining it. It's going to hit up on the map, and that's when I'm going to call, my freaking Delta kill team or whatever the hell, and I'm going to go take his shit. And could be. Now, it could be hell of an elaborate setup to do that.
I mean, but if you're going for global domination and you want to fucking take out the next quantum, why waste all of your resources building a quantum computer?
The problem is that Bitcoin's kind of, it's open source. You've already seen it's copied and being, various other versions of Bitcoin that are out there, Bitcoin Gold, but, all these various ones. And we're already seeing like the tippy top of the people that are savvy in the cryptocurrency. Like, don't get me wrong, they're still going to hold Bitcoin because they know what it's worth. They know what it does. But you already see them, like when they're looking at like privacy, they're already, looking at privacy coins and looking at ways to essentially keep what they're doing as invisible as humanly possible. And that's getting better and better, as time goes on. That's partially why we see financial regulators kind of pulling their hair out, trying to, hey, let's print more money because we don't know how to deal with this. We might as well, run this system, basically ride it till the wheels fall off and pump everything we can out of it now, because clearly we don't know how to contain this. And that's kind of where we're at.
The most valuable asset is an asset that doesn't know they're an asset. So with the most advantageous way, or I guess with highest efficacy, be for Bitcoin to be a U.S. government operation, and the vast majority of people don't know it is. So you sell the idea, just like the Jesuits with the cartographers, and behind the cartographers are the military scouts. If everyone on Wall Street believes, oh fuck, we don't know what Bitcoin is, this is an existential threat to the US dollar, well, that sells the illusion very well to anyone that might be, having some dangerous thoughts about, is this a US government operation? Well, when you see all these billionaires that are like, well, I don't know what the fuck this is, that it's a smokescreen. It throws them off the trail. What better way to do it than to keep it like I don't know, keep it like the Manhattan Project. Like only 5 people in the world know the full image. Maybe that's the case.
So my theory on, and I don't know if it was designed to be this way, but like if I was thinking about how I was going to utilize it, coming from the cabal perspective, right? Let's say we're cocaine cowboy knights of multitudes, running guns, running drugs, and if we're trading in guns and drugs. Guns, I mean, they can be tracked. They got serials, and there are parts that can be tracked on that. Kind of difficult to do, depends, but it can be done. Drugs sort of be tracked. There's no serial number though on a kilo. Though most usually you'll be able to figure out where it's coming from, even if you don't know the networks that are moving it. But it's the cash. And like you had the IRS guy on, Beast on, talking about how easy it is to track cash. Well, if you're running some kind of black operation, it depends on like a drug budget, and you're having to transact in cash, that's a liability that could lead back on the government. And yeah, you're probably going to have the leverage and the ability to shut that down if it comes back on you. But why even risk that if you can get drug dealers and you can get all kinds of illicit people that you want to track and either bring under you in the cabal or the cartel, or just take them out. If I go in and I whack a drug dealer and all of his shit is on a fucking crypto wallet, and we get that crypto wallet, guess what? We have all this cryptocurrency. There's no way to track that as a US dollar thing. You could have that on like a thumb drive, a hard drive, whatever, and you could be essentially using that to fund anything else. This is what I was saying. Like if you wanted to get real freaking smart, you'd find out how to get, hit drug dealers that are using crypto, because guess what? You're never going to be able to trace the money that you get if you want to go treasure hunting that way. So that's what I would be thinking it would be good for, is if you're having to deal with a shadow economy, you're trying to micromanage, you're not trying to necessarily take down every criminal organization, you're trying to moderate it. Mm-hmm. Which is, essentially, our policy with the cartels. We know we can't abolish the cartels, but we can moderate them a little bit. And if you can get those guys into something that only you can trace, only your nerds, you already have the surveillance capability, the network analysis to know who's going to be moving the drugs, the arms, and who's likely going to be holding the accounts. Well, if you kind of already have an idea who those players are, and you don't need, the ability to track the currency anymore, well, you just put them off into something else. And next thing you know, you have essentially, you have forced the people that you want to control to get into a system that can't be, registered. And then you can rob them. You can do whatever you want in that shadow economy game. And then, you get that budget, boom, that's right into your own black budget funding the next op. And there's no, there's no trackable bills there.
Born black,
essentially. You can basically make your own born black programs right there, just because you captured some assets from some guys that had untrackable assets.
Mm-hmm. So that being said, is that what Bitcoin is, right? Because if you really want, right, there's the black budget, sure, but it's not truly black, because it's still like the fact that you and I know about it shows that it's not truly a black budget. A true black budget is, the CIA running cocaine to inner cities. Truly, mm-hmm. It's not that it came through Congress and they said, all right, this is the black budget, you guys do what you need to do with it. No, you
got to source it yourself.
The true black budget is it's the money the IRS doesn't know about. It's the payment you get, from your friend, right? It's the true.
It goes Operation Gladio, the Unholy Alliance, going into Italy and saying, hey, SS has this giant morphine supply. We can link up with the mob. We can get Lucky Luciano. We can get the Sicilian Mafia, and we can organize them into 5 families to keep the cartel in line. Mm-hmm. And we're all going to get rich peddling drugs. Mm-hmm. And we get this, hey, we're sticking it to the commies, is the cover for it. Yeah.
Right. So, right. So the point is, so that's what I'm getting to. Is that what Bitcoin is? What better way to, right? It's kind of like, how do I word this? It's, it's kind of like what Alex Jones said about, he's like the first like hyper AI. He's like, it's already built. And the thing is it's running off like Google, it's running off Facebook, it's running off humans, real-time interactions. It's a double placebo because we don't know we're even, it's kind of like a Amazon Turk, TURK. You can go in and you can like do captchas like all day, every day. You can earn like $10 an hour. I tried doing it for a little bit in like 2015. I went insane. But you can basically go in and do captchas, and they use that as raw fodder to fund AI training, so they can get the AI smarter and smarter. So what they're doing is they're taking real-time data from your organic processor, millions of people doing Amazon Turk. I think most people that do it are like in India, because $10 an hour is a fortune. But they do that, and they get these trillions of captchas solved, and they use that to kind of build their AI. So what would be an even better example is, because with that, you're solving a CAPTCHA. You know that you're trying to solve some, it's like whenever it says select the squares that have like a stoplight in it. If I just said, hey, David, can you show me where the stoplights are in a picture? You'd point them out. But the second there's a grid and it's like select it, it's like the meme where it's like the sweating, like fuck is part of the stoplight in that square. Mm-hmm. Like, God damn it, I just want to be able. It affects how you go about it. So a true placebo effect or a true accurate, I guess, data wouldn't be Amazon Turk. It would be me uploading to YouTube and adding a search engine optimization tags and thumbnails, and you contributing to my podcast and sending the links to your friends. We don't know we're contributing, so you're going to get the most raw, uncut, candid material for AI. So what Alex Jones said when he was on Rogan for episode 911 was that we are all building this AI, and it's being built in real time with billions of human nodes. So it already has the intelligence of billions of human beings. So if this whole thing's being built, right, and it's absorbing information from all of us, you're outsourcing it to the whole world. So with Bitcoin, is the purpose of Bitcoin is Satoshi, is Satoshi an NSA agent, right? Or is that just a code? Is Satoshi, is that a project, right? Is that Operation Manhattan? Was this Operation Satoshi? They build this thing. What better black budget than to float this Bitcoin thing and pump the price from $0.00 of a dollar to $60,000? And if they hold 1 million Bitcoin, 1 million of the 18 million Bitcoin, I mean, Jesus Christ, and 1 million times 60,000, that's 60 billion? 60, whatever the fuck that is. So let's say I have more than that. Let's say they have 10 million. Let's say they have $1 trillion in Bitcoin. You have now floated this whole thing over the whole world of everyone pumping money into it, thinking it's the next gold rush. It's the darkest money built into the very fabric of it. There's no flight paths. There's no itineraries. There's no, we flew a Learjet into Dallas and that had a ton of cocaine on it. It's the darkest money you could ever do. I think Bitcoin is absolutely a black budget operation. They just funded dark operations for the next 5 decades.
I don't think that it is to an extent.
I will fight.
There are definitely people that are going to utilize it that way. And as I just laid out, that's how I would war game it out and utilize it. I don't think that Bitcoin was designed from the ground up to be that way. And,
sure.
And the reason that I would say that is going back to like what you're saying about LifeLog and Facebook. I think if it was designed to be that way from the ground up, it would have had a lot more institutional support ready to come out and back it. It would have had a lot more, rather than like a bunch of like libertarian nerds screaming from the rooftops going, hey, look at this thing that we're all talking about. And for years, people were calling it crazy. I think there would have been institutional support. But nowadays, we are seeing them try to create the perfect one, and Bitcoin wouldn't be perfect for just that. Bitcoin can be tracked in certain ways. It's not the perfect black budget coin. There are privacy coins and there are things coming out that are much better suited for that purpose. But I think that once people understood what Bitcoin was capable of, anyone who is, we saw the Silk Road blow up. We saw anyone who's in the shadow economy realized what it was. And I think that's when the game changed. And that's why we see this explosion of privacy, coins and whatnot. But I don't think it was necessarily that Bitcoin was built from the beginning to be that. That's just if, you're someone that's running an incredibly shady outfit, and now this is in your, thrown into the field and you got to figure out what to do with it. Well, that's what you're going to do with it now. But I don't think it was intended to be that way.
But what better devil's advocate? What better way than what you said? The best asset. They don't know they're an asset.
Yeah, we recruited the libertarians, and they don't know it.
Exactly. That's what. But let's take that idea and run with it. Is What better way to do it? If it came out with a bunch of again, I don't think you and I are the smartest people in the world. So if we can think of this, right? If it was a government op, it would have more institutional support. That means other people can think of that. What better way to do it than to make it look like some counterculture shit? Don't have institutional support. Have Goldman Sachs, have Bezos going, oh, harumph, harumph, harumph. What is this? Mm-hmm. What better way than true deniability, right? What better way to perform, let's say 9/11, than to do it and have 99% of the government not know it? So when you question these other people, they actually believe it was a foreign attack. Or let's use that as an example. Maybe it truly was 19 terrorists funded by the Saudis. And what's Occam's razor is that we detected it and we said, hey, if we let this go through, we can go invade Iraq. That's probably much more realistic. So maybe the equivalent would be they found Bitcoin early on. Maybe they didn't design it from the ground up. Maybe they found it. Maybe they killed Satoshi and they're like, hold on, this has a lot of promise.
And I think if to entertain the idea that, let's say that there was a core group of people that intended this all along, I would say it's much more of a splinter than, say, the cabal's plan. And I'd say it kind of goes back to, don't ask the way to the cauldron. I would say that if you're going to have that situation, you might have a small group of insiders that understand that they're about to, they're the up and coming rising stars. They're going to have to challenge this establishment elite somehow, and you need a war chest to do it. And so possibly you have a splinter group that made Bitcoin or tried to pump it up because they realized if it blew up that they would already be on the ground floor. And then guess what? When the US dollar collapses and suddenly every state soldier has to become a mercenary or learn to get another job, guess who's got the biggest military in town? It's the young bucks that created that little splinter group. So it's going to be the Bitcoin warlords, and that's why it's
that's the name of the episode.
Yeah, Bitcoin warlords in Bolivia or something like that. But
Bolivia.
It kind of comes down to something like that because
like
it is
a documentary.
We are the new Vice.
What should it be? The Bitcoin warlords of Bolivia.
Well, technically, it's not of Bolivia.
Yeah, you're right.
But I mean, I'm sure they're there. We're seeing, drug dealers and these shadow economies using this everywhere. But
I don't want to do clickbait, so we can't do that. It'll just be the Bitcoin warlords.
Bitcoin warlords in Bolivia. Whatever.
Yeah. But you're right. It will be. Well, that's the other idea, and I think I showed you that screenshot message was. As the world slowly learns, and again, as a biology major, not an economics fucking major, as the world slowly learns that we're not paying back the debt, that the gold reserve, you're not getting it back, and we want our money. Yeah, okay, well, we've spent all of your money building tanks and satellites and shit. The next thing they'll have to do is they're going to have to find this new, we can't come out with US dollar 2.0 because they're all going to be like, it's going back to the same girl that cheated on you. They're all going to be like, China's going to be like, I'm not lending them $2 trillion. They defaulted on their last thing. Not only that, when I came knocking, I was looking down the barrel of an M1 Abrams, like they're not going to pay it back. So what better way to do it than maybe like Blackwater? Oh, that's not the United States. That's Blackwater. What better way than to create Bitcoin? And be like, oh, that's not us. Right. The best assets are the ones that don't know their assets. Everyone in the United States, all the the institutional elite are going, what the fuck is Bitcoin? That sells the scam that much better to where China's going, oh, even the elite on Wall Street are freaking out. So this is the new reserve currency. In reality, behind it all, as always, is Uncle Sam just pulling the strings. Is that what it is? You float this thing, and even Uncle Sam's going, I don't know what that is. What could that possibly? It's like who smelt it, dealt it, right? It's who farted, right? That's what Bitcoin is. It's who farted.
Yeah, I just don't think it can be attributed to the whole empire, going back to the black box, the same way China's not a unified black box. We know our government isn't. And so that's why it's like, I'm much more comfortable saying like, let's say it is built up from the ground up to be that way. How do we build a war chest? It's going to be for a smaller splinter group of people that realize that they're going to be challenging the dominant power. And they need a way to say to the war fighters, hey, those guys aren't going to be able to butter your bread anymore. And they already sold you out. They cheated you. They fucked you. You can kill me and you rob me, but then you're going to have to deal with someone much less reasonable and much less educated than me. Or we can all do business and we can keep this empire rolling for another 300 years,
It's a reset. They hit reset on the N64. So it's what you said in the first episode we did. You take over China to retake the West because they realized the West turned into a forest fire that they couldn't handle. So you take over China to retake the West, right? You leave your house and join the group of burglars so that you can break into your house. Is that what Bitcoin is? And I think you're right. I don't think it was built from the ground up. I'm sure that they discovered it and were like, hey, this is we can use this. Is that what it is? Is they're getting in there and they're going, hey, the government can't pay you anymore, but the reality is it's the same people behind that.
Well, to what you just said, one of the major benefits of utilizing Bitcoin and specifically the Chinese market is when we're studying China and we're seeing the elites of China, they are always trying to figure out, how do we get our money out of China? How do we have our escape route to get out? Because like I said, China's not a black box. They're just afraid of their system collapsing as our people in DC are of theirs. So at the end of the day, if there's one golden egg, beautiful thing about it is, instead of elites having to go necessarily to Macau to do the whole thing where they basically play baccarat and accept whatever they lose as the price of doing business, and then they cash out that way, now all of a sudden you can go and we can be using crypto as a way to essentially be telling elites of China that say, hey, we want to recruit or we want to debrief. Here are these ways that we can keep your wealth protected. Here are ways that we can so there are a lot of valuable assets. And when you look at what China did early on in the crypto space, it was kind of perfect for that, because they allowed so many people to set up kind of cryptocurrency like businesses that God knows how much information we were able to get just from doing those kinds of transactions in those businesses and figuring out, hey, who's on top of this and paying attention to these kind of things. And so that does give you kind of additional avenues to work with the Chinese, but also we're still talking about corruption. So just because, we're helping some Chinese elite smuggle his money out of the country doesn't necessarily mean that he's loyal to us or playing for the good guys. But honestly, at the end of the day, if we're able to, if our decentralized system, and I know they're trying to make our system more and more centralized, more and more like China, but if our free market can withstand a decentralized cryptocurrency type economy, China can't. China is a very centralized economy. Like if we can make that kind of a standard, we're going to break their system, because they're going to start getting everything they can out of that system. Or at the very least, if we were smart, we would just be restricting their ability to trade internationally using the U.S. dollar. And we could just choke them off a little bit quicker, but that would be very obvious. Well, if we build up these kind of decentralized economy networks and everything, we're putting the open source tools out there for the Chinese to essentially deconstruct their own tyranny. And that's the ideal solution. I mean, ideally, no one wants to nuke China and have to fight a ground war in China. No one wants to do it. If we can create a bunch of decentralized open source tools that allow the Chinese people to dismantle that and have a nice little safe implosion, and it'll look like Russia, or I should say the former Soviet Union in the 90s. You'll have Chinese military units getting hired as mercenaries, and there will be some infighting going on there. But it'll be smaller scale, and eventually, you'll get some kind of a Putin-like figure that'll, try to create some kind of quasi-functional modern state out of it. And so that's kind of the best tool that we could be using Bitcoin for. And it's also why I wouldn't say it's entirely our empire that built it up that way, because there are people in our empire too that are just as threatened by that decentralization, and they're scared shitless. And that's why I would say that whatever section, cabal, private little group of people that did come up with that, they're probably on the more liberty loving wing, and they're trying to figure out how to just put the tools out there to decentralize things. And that way you're creating an environment in which your enemy can't sustain themselves anyway.
That's actually a brilliant thought. Is Bitcoin, is that our weapon that's imploding China? Because again, you're right, it's the black box idea. They're not this monolith that's like, it's any perception of like monolithic perfection is just an effective propaganda campaign. Like, they're as fucked and as factioned as anyone, right? So what better way to take it down than instead of blowing it up with an A-bomb, you do an implosion in its footprint. There'll still be dust, there'll still be a lot of debris, and you're going to have to run dump trucks in there for a couple weeks to pull it all out.
But we won't be to blame, and they'll be the ones doing it. So it's
exactly, instead of an Independence Day hitting the Empire State Building and it explodes, you want more of a 9/11 collapses in its footprint. Still a lot of shit to deal with, but all things considered, it's the right. How the Soviet Union fell was, I mean, it was beyond best case scenario. The idea that we thought that most people alive in the 50s and 60s thought they weren't going to die of old age. They thought they were going to die from an ICBM. The fact that they ended as just sort of a... and they just kind of, formed into their own... that no one in their wildest dreams could have hoped that would happen. Best case scenario was a small nuclear exchange as opposed to global holocaust. So is that what this is? Is that what this is, Thucydides' trap, or what we doing, or is what Bitcoin is Bitcoin our best weapon yet? Is it DARPA's best weapon yet?
It's a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, maybe not built from the ground up, purpose built, but man, if you can avoid, a ground war in China, just like, a perfect weapon would be COVID, man, Bitcoin, what a weapon that would be.
Yeah, and it comes back to like what we were saying before. Like the end goal of the communist state is to turn 1 and 3 into a government formant. And our goal, if we want to win this for the liberty-loving side, is to create so many open source intelligence tools, so many open source means of doing things that you can't play that game of whack-a-mole. There's no way to get around that decentralization. It's about going back to game theory. It's about literally engineering the rules of the game. Like you're saying with DARPA, they're framing the narrative of how the world is supposed to be, and then letting everyone else play out their parts in that. And that's the idea. If we give out so many open source tools that the most tight-ass authoritarian on the planet can't keep up with that game of whack-a-mole, well, war through attrition, he's done eventually. It might take a lifetime, it might take 2, but eventually that guy's going to lose just because they can't keep up. And that's the overall goal. And that's kind of the arms race we're in now between this open source and the quickly tightening sphincter that is the big tech conglomerate trying to clinch on a white knuckle death grip everything that they have.
Man, my mind's just fixated right now on the idea of Bitcoin as a weapon. Like, what better? Ray Kurzweil painted an interesting...
Trade wars turn to real wars. Yeah. Like, that's how you start it.
Ray Kurzweil had an interesting... I don't know if it was an argument, but he was like... when you look at like a graph of a like logarithmic increase in technological communications, like price PowerPoint or whatever the fuck it is, he was like the Soviet Union, not saying, it might not be that correlation equals causation, but he said that the affordability of fax machines was directly coincided with the collapse of the Soviet Union. And his argument is the free flow of information. Now, again, is that correlation, not causation?
Well, you see the same argument being made right now by the gun community and the 3D printing community. You see them talking about, sticking a barrel, in a freaking bucket, and basically using, an electronic, chemical process to rifle a barrel. That's insane. Yeah. Okay, I've been, my grandfather was a gunsmith. I kind of grew up, a range rat my whole life. And just seeing like what we have now, like back when I was growing up, like there was a handful of companies that made decent optics alone that you would even consider using. And and really you had 2 options. If you're making, gun equipment, you're either trying to make something that the military is going to like so that you get a giant contract, you're making something that's cheap ass that, all the FUDs are going to get, or you're making some hyper specialized competition thing that so few people are going to utilize and it's going to cost so much that it's going to be like a labor of love, and you have to be doing one or the other to even float that. And it was like oil and water; the two never mixed. But when you saw the increase in private contracting, like I would say, the war in Iraq is probably the best thing that ever happened to the firearms industry, because purely, when the military wants to adopt something new, there's so much bureaucracy, they have to make sure it works for everything, and they're going to order in bulk. When you have all these private military contractors, they're like, hey, we need this, and they're coming up with ideas. They're basically creating an economy where all of a sudden, we look at the glass market today, like you can go on to Vortex Optics, primary arms, and you can get these insane optics for incredibly cheap costs. Like, when I was, 17 years old, the idea that you were going to spend less than $1,000 on a scope, that, like, it's trash. Like, if you're spending less than $1,000 on a scope, it's trash. Nowadays, there are $400 optics that you could slap on a bolt gun and you could do ELR with if you know your shit. And so it's kind of that same game. It's just about it going back to creating the world that all the actors are going to play their part in. And once you create the incentive for people to develop these things, it increases the rate of which it's going. So once we start getting to a point where our institutions realize the power of, hey, letting go of the death grip on the centralization and embracing decentralized open source tools, once we get to the point where we are causing our institutions to challenge each other and innovate in that space, as soon as that race kicks off, China and any other authoritarian centralized economy is toast. There's no way they can do it. The only way that they are sustained is because, going back to Bolivia and South America, where they give you the what we would call a rhino that makes it so bad that makes all the young kids want a socialist. That's the only thing holding us back from going there, is the fact that we have a bunch of rhinos that are going to sell us socialism and centralized control light. And they're going to be so incompetent at their job that the youth is going to want just a full-on socialist. Yeah. And that's how they maintain that control, and that's how they limit our institutions from saying, hey, this is the power of open source. And this is why, like, software developers and like anyone in that space is going to tell you, like, open source is the way to go. There's no other way to get around it. Now, you can say, obviously, well, we're talking national security, so there's always got to be operational security for ongoing operations, sources and methods, and protecting that. And that's true. That's never going away. No one's saying that, we have to telegraph everything we do and wear, little yellow stars that say who we are, what our history is, on our shit. But the point being is that we could very easily just take this whole system down by reorienting our institutions to think from the policy that, hey, open source and decentralized assets are the way to go. And that's really all it takes at this point to take down the energy hegemony, to take down China. And it's really just, and going back to your argument, let's hope that the up and coming, Bitcoin warlords have saw this coming. And when the US dollar collapses, they're about to go over to the warfighting community. It's like, do you really want to be with those faggots over there that sold you out? Or do you want to be on this team over here?
And the question comes down to, is when it's kind of like what Frank Zappa said, like, freedom, we only have freedom because it's like beneficial. It's like the illusion of freedom is beneficial. When it finally is no longer like necessary, like the lights will come on, the curtain will pull away, the chairs will be pulling back, and there will just be a brick wall. And you realize that there never was freedom. It was all an illusion. It's the same thing, right? Are we going to see that when the U.S. dollar collapses? Is the entire idea that there needs to be a currency, is that just going to, is the mask going to fall off, and is the industrial war state just going to be, it doesn't matter who has Bitcoin and who has the U.S. dollars, it's going to come down to raw power, who has the fleets of B-52s? Or do you have to have currency because that's the only way you can effectively herd people, because otherwise it's hurting
there will always be a currency. There's always going to be gold on the planet. There's always going to be silver on the planet.
Economies,
and just for the record, going back to the argument of untraceable currency and the application of like Bitcoin for that, well, really the only benefit to Bitcoin over like gold and silver in that aspect is, if I go and I rob a drug dealer who has a bunch of gold bars and I whack them and I got to move a bunch of gold bars, that's a hell of a lot bigger of a deal to smuggle. Yeah, you can melt it down, you can do a lot of things with that, than it is, say, a freaking thumb drive with 8 billion on Bitcoin or whatever it could be. It could just be a thumb drive. So it's really, there's always going to be that currency. And if it isn't gold and silver, in your local community, it's going to be coffee and tobacco. I mean, if you're stockpiling tobacco and the US dollar collapses, guess what? If you have a pound of tobacco, you're going to be able to get a hell of a lot more with that pound of tobacco than the guy that has to fill a wheelbarrow full of US dollars,
German marks, right?
and then weigh it to figure out, how much bread they get.
Yeah. Yeah. That's because we could have kind of like skins in video games, right? Or like license plates. Like, it's not enough, when all the billionaires can afford the same $7 million Maybach, right? Mm-hmm. The new thing comes down to, well, what's your license plate? Mine's 0001, right? It becomes a new currency.
There will always be a new currency.
Yes.
When you say the skins thing, back when I was heavy when I was heavy into Counter-Strike, one of the things that, and I the only reason I stopped is because they made it harder to do, but there was this thing called CS:GO Lounge, and you could bet skins on professional Counter-Strike matches.
Yeah.
Right? And so I took that to the next level. I'm doing stats analysis on all the teams. I'm watching their flights and their schedules. I'm like, who's going to be red eye today? Who's going to be off their game today? And of course, the running joke about North American Counter-Strike players is they're all corrupt. The one time we put together a team that was even close to winning the championship at the time, they had a really great, it goes into overtime match. The match ends, they lose, and then immediately after, everyone but one guy on the team gets banned for match fixing because the in-game leader that ran that team had another team that he was using to coach other people. It was like a business where he would go and he would teach people how to play Counter-Strike, and they were using that as the training team, their red team for when they're practicing. So everyone had data that, hey, these guys, beat this other team every fucking time. But everyone also knew that the captain of Team A owns Team B. And so whenever there was a tournament going on where Team A is already qualified to get in and Team B is one match away, but they're fighting Team A, guess what? It was an open secret. We all knew you bet on Team B because Team A is going to throw the game, and you could just, your shit would just blow up. And they all got banned for it. And because at the time, if you were a professional CSGO player, unless some guy from the UAE, and this is real, some guy called Motor2K, he would come in on just random streamers and pro gamers, and he would just drop $50 grand on them or some shit like that. Unless that happens, you could make a lot more money gambling on CSGO than you would actually playing it at a professional level. God. And that's currency. Little skins and stuff like that. Yeah. You get a knife in CSGO, that's $500. Next thing you know, I've got Ukrainians and shit hitting me up and trying to make deals with me and shit.
Yeah, I remember my best friend Matt explaining to me. Matt's the best gamer I've ever met in my life. No bullshit. Hands down, the best gamer I've ever met in my. It's intimidating when you watch him play. It's not fun. It's almost a little. I imagine it would be like going hunting with Dale. It's when I watch Matt play, I'm like, this isn't even fun. This is genocide.
Well, yeah, and there David, that was kind of the split between.
I gotta pee again.
Man, you have more caffeine than I did.
Dude, I've been.
No, I'll tell funny. Oh yeah, just going through the water bottles.
Stay hydrated. Stay hydrated.
Yeah, stay hydrated. I'll tell some Counter-Strike stories about ESEA and the mindset of those people versus the people that play regular Counter-Strike and how this ruins friendships. Because you will have people that just want to play the game and they want to have fun, and then you have the people that want to be the very best at that game, and you can't mix those two. It's like oil and water. You put those people on the same team, they're going to hate each other. Friendships get ruined. This is why I used to tell everybody, keep your main account just D-ranked, keep it in silver, play with the trash plebs and just have fun there. And then you go and you get what's called an ESEA account. And that's where all the tryhards play at 128 tick. And that's where all the guys have been playing Counter-Strike for 10 years and they'll take your head off in the blink of an eye kind of thing happens. And if you want to get good at Counter-Strike, you want to get good at anything, you go there, those guys will yell at you. And those guys will play that game on a level that if you are not a hyper-competitive individual that wants to dominate and be the best at everything, you are going to hate that game, uninstall it, never play it again. Versus if you had just stayed in the silver, playing with your drunk ass friends or who the fuck ever, and you just don't really care. It's a fun little game where you're just shit talking. But that, it's just a mindset thing at that. But going back to, what we were talking about, currency and everything, if it's not crypto, if they ban crypto, it'll be skins in some, CSGO is old now. I don't really play a lot of games anymore, but it'll be something else. It'll be some hero in a MOBA. Our generation doesn't give a fuck about gold and silver. There'll be Gen Z probably won't even give a fuck. They'll care more about skins than gold. So it's bound to happen. There's no way to get around centralizing a currency, because at the end of the day, currency is whatever is valuable. There's, sorry, if the US dollar collapses, tobacco and coffee is going to be more valuable than your wheelbarrow of dollars. And that's just the way it's going to be. And that's why it's like I say, at the end of the day, decentralize everything and, diversify your assets. You should have a little bit of everything. If anyone is all in on crypto, well, EMP goes off. Yeah, you might be able to recover that one day and use it. The grid comes back online. But at the end of the day, you could be a Bitcoin warlord, but, the grid goes down. And at the end of the day, if you're not stockpiling tobacco and coffee and ammo, that's worthless.
Oh, I just pissed.
I
just pissed for like a minute. So for currency, though, I was thinking, is changing Bitcoin, is this just like a total coup? Is it maybe not the existing power structure? Is it a total coup? Just in the, it's kind of like Joker in The Dark Knight. He starts burning all the money, and he's like, "Your men work for me now." It's like a coup, right? It's a takeover of power, and we're in charge now.
It will be when the dollar collapses. At that point.
That's what I mean. Is this? Let's be optimistic. Is this maybe not the deep state? Is this new reign of these Elon Musks, these Satoshis, they's
calling them the McAfee warlords at this point.
That's what I mean. Is there this new power structure that's coming in, and they know that the root of all of it is money, and they're not using bombs. Maybe they're doing a direct opposite of what I argue, that money doesn't matter. It's only physical force. Maybe they're coming in, they're doing Bitcoin. It's a total coup. It's the Navy SEALs shooting all 10 of your guards at the same time. Boom, they just drop. And you're like, oh fuck, right?
It can 100% be that. Going back to what I was saying earlier, if you're, I call myself a libertarian because that's my sympathies, but I'm a structural realist at heart. Power is the ultimate authority. I would just prefer to live in a libertarian sympathetic country. That being said, if I've got to be Joseph Stalin, I'm going to be Joseph Stalin. I'm going to be in whatever position like you want to create a system where tyrants can rise. I'm going to be 20 times worse than Hillary, Stalin, Hitler, Mao, just to prove a point.
Jesus.
But, just to prove a point, I'm going to make the other guy wish they were a libertarian. I'm not the non-aggression principle libertarian.
Yeah. You're taking the Gatling gun approach, right? Create a gun right, because wasn't that his the guy that created it? Wasn't that his mindset? Was create a gun that can kill so many people that you'd scare people from ever wanting to go to war again? But it didn't really work.
Well, to quote Eric Prince when he was talking about the George, at an event in Georgia or whatever. I think it was like across from the Ranger School. I forget the name of the actual school it was at, an actual university. It was near there, but it's some university, like a military university. But they were talking about all kinds of private security company regulations and stuff like that. And I'll never forget this, because normally you see him kind of reserved, but it was kind of funny because right before Eric Prince was supposed to talk, there was this female lawyer that just kind of got up there and like spouted a bunch of nomenclature about like regulating PMCs. And she, it's pretty clear that she had no idea how anything actually works. And like you could tell that Eric was like kind of like just wanted to stick it to her afterwards, because he just kind of comes in hot and he like lays down this history lesson. And I'll never forget this, is like, you want the Taliban to come to the table with you, butcher so many of them that they need heavy equipment to bury the bodies and then see if they want to come to the table with you. Now, I don't think that's how we want to be doing things. Make no mistake. I don't want to be going massacre mode. But if the alternative to the libertarian republic that I want to live in is a socialist state that's okay with doing all kinds of stuff like that, well then
play their game.
Guess what? Yeah. The only option I have is to double down until they want to be a libertarian.
I'm going to pull up a Curtis LeMay quote, but there's another quote from Jim Mattis, and he's saying, it's from a couple of years ago, and he's like, the Russians need to understand that You know, there is no, he said nuclear weapons are nuclear weapons. There's no such thing as tactical or strategic nuclear weapons, whether it's 5 kilotons or 30 megatons. Nuclear weapons are nuclear weapons. And if you use them against the United States, we're going to respond, and we're not going to worry about a proportional response. A nuclear weapon is a nuclear weapon. You drop 5 kilotons, we're going to drop a Tsar Bomba on you. You play them at their own game. But there's a great Curtis LeMay quote that I've butchered 1,000 times on this podcast. So I'm just going to pull it up right now. Quote, it's about war. Not the war criminal one, but it's about using overwhelming force. Oh, here we are. First one. If you're going to use military force, then you ought to use overwhelming military force. Use too much force, and deliberately use too much force. You'll save lives, not only your own, but the enemy's too. If we're going to do it, don't dial it. Hit the switch and take it.
The most just war is a swift war. You know, the quicker you can get it over with. You know,
it's my argument with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I think that that number of people were going to die anyway. Was it going to be with 1 million more of us or not? And people say they're getting ready to surrender, blah, blah, blah. My dad's dad was getting ready to be deployed there. No doubt in my mind he would have been killed as cannon fodder. He was 18. I wouldn't be here. So I have to argue for the nuclear bomb. But that's another rabbit hole for another time. Point is yeah, you want to make them. It's like one of the operators I've had on this podcast told me. There's no Jeffersonian democracy in Afghanistan. He was like, they understand force. He's like, so when we zip tie them, if they speak back to you, they have a 2-scale thing. If they speak back to you at all, out of turn, you break their jaw. If they lay a finger on you, even if it's just you decapitate them in front of their friends, and they'll all fall in line. And that's horrible. And that's something I can't wrap my head around, you know, as a guy that designs my own hoodies and has a podcast. I can't imagine.
But heck, it doesn't have to be Afghanistan. We go down to Bolivia or Peru at the border and we meet some Shining Path dudes that want to boil people alive and whatnot. Guess what? It's the same thing. And that's why it's like I say that the dial versus the switch, it's not a left or a right thing. It's purely down to, you know, who's motivated.
Yeah.
You know, I say it's a question of motivation.
Yeah.
Because, you know, all the people that are out there talking about the non-aggression principle and this, that, and the other thing, and, you know, how we all need to, you know, peace, love, and dope and go into the Star Trek utopian future, you know, well, the reason that, you know, they want to, you know, bat people with clubs. I mean, you know, I remember watching during the riots and everything, there was an Antifa guy that like basically had like some little scrapes on his leg. Didn't look that bad. It's not like he's seriously bleeding, but you know, you can see a little bit of blood there. And he's laying on the ground crying like a bitch.
Is that the guy that yelled medic?
Yeah, and they come over with a belt and they put a belt on his leg trying to use it like a tourniquet because he's got a freaking little scrape. It's the fact that we just have a class of people that are just, they're not initiated into violence. Violence isn't a part of their everyday life. But, you know, going back to the warring ape, you know, in our natural habitat, not this quasi bubble thing that we've built up here in the United States in safety, you know, you learn violence. You know, even if you're not going out and, you know, joining the military and getting into a war, you are going to be accustomed on some level that there's violence in their neighborhood. There are violent people in your neighborhood. And, you know, even if you're not seeking out confrontation and learning how to be, you know, a fighter, you're still having to deal with that and understand that that's what's around you. You know, the class of people we have here that think of it as a dial, the only reason they think that is because they've never seen the light switch.
Yeah, they've been allowed to play with the dial. No one's ever come in and punched them in the face. Yeah, I mean, let's use perhaps the most like civilized and like sheltered and admittedly laughable analogy. Let's use this podcast. When I get censored nonstop, when I can't even find my podcast in a search engine or the search bar and I can't do anything, there's nothing else to do but to dial it. You know, I don't want to be this, you know, I don't want to be Stalin, but if we're going to play the game, I'm going to make you wish that we were playing libertarian. When I can't just get when my subscriber count stays static for months and I can't get anything, well, then, yeah, that's why I end up putting out 2 episodes a day. That's why, Tom, you should slow down. You know, other podcasts do 1 a week. Fuck you. I'm going to do 12. Dude, so, you know, maybe you're punching too far ahead of you. Like, fuck you. I'm going to have on Mike Durant, or I'm going to have on Spalding, or I'm going to have on Charlie Duke, or I'm going to have on some other guests that are in the pipeline. Because I'm not allowed to play on their playing field. I'm not allowed to play in trending, or I can't come up on a search engine. So when you take all that away, when I have 3,067 subscribers, but the average video gets about 12 views because everyone comes to it and says, when did you last upload? Or Tommy, you haven't uploaded in a month, and then they see that there's 40 episodes uploaded, and these don't pop up in my feed. When they fucking put their thumb on the scale of everything I do, I have to dial it up to 12. Yep. And again, it's a laughable analogy. It's, but
it's a genius play, because what you're doing is you're saying, fuck the platform, I'm building a library.
I'm building a library. BitChute, Rumble,
Yeah, and at the end of the day, no matter what, YouTube and all that other stuff collapses, if we one day go back into a free information age, you still have this massive freaking library that you could just dump onto whatever dominant platform emerges.
Yeah.
So, like, your strategy is saying, fuck it, I don't care what they're trying to do to suppress me. I'm just going to build the fucking library is the way to go. Because at the end of the day, when you look at, war of attrition, and the fact that, you're targeting quality, you're getting a lot of quality people, and you're building this, this search log where it's like, I go through and I'm just seeing like tons of people. It's like, I need to make time to watch this. I need to make time to watch that. Like, at the end of the day, once we break out of the finger on the scale narrative, your library is worth more than their platform ever fucking is.
Fuck yeah.
And so that's the way to go.
My analogy is the platform is like a forest. There's a bunch of like brush on the ground. It's like a dry forest, right? And really, if you can create good content is a flame, right? And the flame will naturally take off. It's a funny video. It gets recommended. What's really upsetting is when someone goes, I don't like your flame, and they dump water around your flame so it can only burn so much. And you're like, what the fuck? Let me exit. And then you have all these like Jimmy Kimmel like trending, and it's just like this brain dead where he's like, now what did you get with your new Ferrari? Did you really get leather on the seats? And it's like, it makes you want to suck a shotgun. My analogy is every podcast I do is a gallon of gasoline that I'm just dumping on the forest floor. And either they can let me ignite it with the first one, or now we're at 389 gallons. Eventually the spark's going to hit it. And it's in your best interest to let the spark hit it. Every passing day that you don't pay off this debt, it's going to be worse. So now there's 389 gallons of jet fuel on the forest floor.
And you're the reasonable one, because you're the one sitting here. It's like, you could be monetizing me. You could be getting rich off of what I'm doing.
We could be doing it together.
Yeah, exactly.
I get you have your political fucking agenda. Who doesn't? I have my own. You could be running your shitty Olive Garden ads, and I get 40%, you get 60%, whatever. We can both be making money. But you want to play this techno-Marxist game. You're forcing me to play your game. I didn't want to play. But now
now we got to take it to the next level.
Now you can't be my friend. Right? That's what it is. And it's still not working, so I guess we're just gonna, the dumping of gas will continue until morale improves.
Exactly, or the green on blue will continue until morale improves. It's the only.
It will continue until morale improves. My ultimate goal is I want to get like Trump on, and I want to have him on, and I want to.
That would be perfect.
And I want to get banned for it. I want to get banned from YouTube for it. I want to have him or Alex Jones on. I want to get my channel iced, because that will be martyr status.
Honestly, I feel like Don Jr. is going to be the one that gets banned more, just because he's getting spicier and spicier. It's just that he doesn't have that level yet that they're worried about him.
Tier, yeah.
But Alex Jones, man, might as well start reading. I've seen him blow up some podcasts that did not deserve to get blown up. I've seen him go on this. I won't name drop it, because I don't want to like start shit and drama. But like, I saw him go on some comedian's tiny little podcast, blow that shit up. And I go and I check in on it one day, and it's literally these people that I only know of because of Alex Jones, and they're just sitting there like talking shit about Alex Jones, like, oh yeah, he's like the worst alcoholic boss you could ever work for, and then they're talking about how anyone that drinks whiskey is, they're fake, like nobody actually likes that. I'll take my girl drink, and I'm just sitting here, I'm like, man, you guys are the biggest fucking faggots I've ever seen in my fucking life. Dude. Like, how are you gonna have the commander of the resistance on? How are you gonna have him blow your shit up and then turn on him like that?
That's the thing, man, is I wouldn't talk shit about the hand that feeds me, man. If Kamala Harris came on my podcast tomorrow and blew me up, guess what? I'm not going to talk shit about her because I respect that more. I do. What has a bigger effect on my immediate life? Her coming on my podcast? Sure, I'll shut the fuck up about her. But yeah, that's that's another.
Well, and she's going to make her own meme content. She'll own herself. You just have to sit there and.
Yeah, I don't give a shit, dude. Come on here. She can come on. Bill Gates can come on here, and guess what? I will not bring up the sweater vest. I'll shut the fuck up because I understand where my bread's buttered. All right, it's but it's another thing Tim Dillon pointed out, and I'm glad he said it because it put it into words, and I had a hard time kind of putting it into words. But he was like, man, most podcasts just look like an adult treehouse, like an adult tree fort, like the way they're set up, like the matching leather chairs. They have like their neon signs. There's like a pinball machine. They've got knickknacks and stuff. They've always got these.
It's the cave, man. Yeah.
But it's so artificial, right? It's like going to It's like going to an actual like hole in the wall bar versus a bar that's trying to look like it. They put all this stuff on the walls, and you're like, but it's mass produced. It's in every city. Versus like the real hole in the wall that's been there since World War II, right? You go in there, none of the doors close properly, the lights flicker. But it's like you can't fake it, you can't contrive it. It's this thing that's been aging. Man, there's so many podcasts that you just look at, and it's like, yeah, matching leather chairs. They normally have like a big table in front of them, and they have like pictures of themselves. They have like color coded lighting. Yeah, there's
promotion agents. It turns into promotion agents circle jerking, trying to get their clients on. It's what happened to the TED Talks. For example. Like you look at the history of the TED Talks. What were they originally? Hey, we're going to get this really passionate nerd that's got this project he's working on. We're going to put him on stage, and we're going to let him tell the world about it, about his project. Well, that blows up. Everyone thinks that that's cool as shit. As soon as that blows up, every like talent booking agent or whatever is like trying to figure out, man, if I can get my client to get a TED Talk, if I can get my client to get a TED Talk. And so now it's no longer about finding the passionate, nerd with the project that you want to get to tell the world about the project. And it's now this gate-kept Hollywood access kind of journalism kind of community trying to say, hey, let's get this proud, brave, stunning person to come out here and talk about their diversity and inclusion book, and promote their shit. And it's a promotion. It just turns into a promotional thing.
Let's get this. Let's get this sex-changed, quadriplegic, double-headed Islam, Zoroastrianism, Scientologist convert, which, hey, more power to you. I'm not shitting on any of those. I truly am not. I'm not saying that sarcastically.
Hey, I'm sexually attracted to attack helicopters. I've got no problem with anyone that wants to be what they want to be. That's, libertarian at heart.
Hey, man, that's, male, female, or UH60. Exactly. You got to know what you want. I know what I want, and I won't be shamed. But, yeah, you're right. But maybe that's just... Yeah, it starts with like TED Talks, right? But it's even...
Well, that's a microcosm, but once you see that, it's everywhere else.
It's an example. No, it's a perfect example. But right, it's like Apple, think different, versus like, or Google, don't be evil, versus now it's like
don't be evil.
Fall in line, or you will be deplatformed, and your monetization source will be cut. Like these things.
We will dock your social credit score.
Exactly. Now, is that just the natural course of like systems, though?
Well, to a degree. I mean, no matter what, you're going to have, just as systems develop, they're just going to be able to track things and monitor things. And it's inevitable.
But okay, like from the dawn of time, is that like stuff starts small and fun and organic, and then it turns into this corporate whore.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the way it always goes. Eventually it gets to a point where the only people who are having fun playing the game are these psychopath dudes that are just, just taking it to the absolute maximum just for the sake of taking it to the maximum. And then everyone else is kind of stuck there like, whoa, what the fuck are we playing anymore?
Yeah. Right.
And that's like, when you left last time and I basically told the difference between playing Counter-Strike Silver with your friends who are smoking weed and drinking and having a good time versus signing up for ESEA and, getting your ass kicked and learning from the people that have been playing Counter-Strike competitive for 10 fucking years and like blink of an eye, boom, your head's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Or it's kind of, it's, It's like, it's like SNL being like a thing of legends, right? With like, Will Ferrell or Chris Farley, right?
And what was it originally? It was a bunch of rebellious comedians just having fun with it.
It was like the halls of Valhalla. Like the original stuff is like it's written in stone. It's like, it is like you can't take. And now it's
promotion. Now it's like, we got an up and coming talent. Boom.
Well, put them on SNL. Now it's just Yes Queen, Orange Man bad, and it's like, dude, I have no problem shitting on Orange Man, but it's like,
a tick box for a resume. That's it.
That's it now. It's this shitty thing where it's like, no, you didn't build it. It's not this rebellious up and coming thing. It's you're the son that just got the job. David, by the way, we've been going for 2.5 hours. Don't let me keep you. I can keep talking, and I would love to.
Oh no, I'm good.
Okay, good. That's the end of that formality. But yeah,
no, I like every day to or minute we get to spend doing this. Okay, I had the bird put over to be babysat so it cannot hijack the podcast. And so I get to enjoy a little bit of peace and quiet, and I get to talk about my favorite, conspiracy rabbit hole subjects. Okay. So I'm good to go as long as you want to go. If you want to chop this, we can go for 15 hours. You can chop this up into 15 episodes if you want.
I will do what I goddamn please, son. It's right, but there does seem to be this like natural, and like I hate to say it, and I hate to, because I loved watching them when it first started, like 2011, 2012, and a lot of it was the latent inspiration for this. But I don't know, man. There's something about watching the early Joe Rogan episodes when there's snowflakes on the screen. I mean, literal snowflakes, and it's July. And this podcast, sponsored by the Fleshlight. And in the first 5 minutes, Rogan says retard, faggot, gay, like just all the good words. Like,
we used to be able to be comedians.
Yeah, it's and it was there's a magic to that. And I also get where he's coming from, right? He's he's in his 50s, he's got a family, he's looking at it as like he's taking the golden parachute and he's making sure his children will never be in harm's way in their life. And if I was a dad at that age, I'd probably do the same thing and take that 100 million parachute. But man, if there's not something, I don't know, if there's not something a little soulless about watching it and this like the weird red fleshlight of a studio he has, and it's only on Spotify.
The whale stomach, as Alex Jones like to call it.
Yeah, and you can't go there. There's no comment section. There's no memes about it. There's only clips, and it seems everything's like in your new book, and it's like my new book, which is available here. It's like this arose as this like awesome rebellious alternative to like the nightly show. It's kind of become like that. It's dressed up as a guy with tattoo sleeves who's Joe. And I love Rogan, man. He has had a tremendous impact on my life, truly.
But he feels like he has to be this serious figure now, and he has to be this gatekeeping thing. And I totally get where you're coming from, because like I grew up with stand-up comedy. Like for me, like as young as I can really remember, I was just glued on Comedy Central. I was glued on watching stand-up comedians. If it wasn't for cancel culture and political correctness, I would probably be an alcoholic getting by just by talking shit in bars. Mm-hmm. I could easily have just gone down that road, and I'd be dead a lot sooner, because I'd definitely be drinking my ass off if people were in that line of work and in that industry. Yeah. But I looked up to these guys as these are the ultimate shit talkers. These are the guys that didn't give two fucks what's going on. I'm gonna say what even if they're wrong. Like I remember even the guys that I disagreed with that were like I respected the fact that they would just say the dumbest shit, no fear. Yeah. Even if I thought it was stupid, even if I thought this guy was kind of an asshole, like I respected the fact that this guy's going to get up grab a microphone on stage and just spout that shit off without like thinking, going, oh, is this guy gonna record it and send it over here? When I grew up, every comedian had a joke or a story where it's after a comedy show and some politically correct woman comes up and says, I don't like that you use the word retard or something like that. And then they just go on this, this funny rant talking about how dumb and how much of a cunt this person was. Yeah. And stuff like that. And like, those were my heroes. So like, and like for me, it's like, I cauterized this wound a long time ago. I don't give a fuck. But for me, like watching those people like sell their souls to become these serious intellectual, midwits, that was painful for me. That was seriously some of the most painful betrayal I've ever seen in my life, second only to the national security state that's supposed to be protecting my constitution doing it.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that's what motivates me to be such a pissed off motherfucker today. Is you know I've got so many knives in my back now that I've got nowhere else to go but find out who the hell put them there and make sure that they can't do that anymore. Yeah, disable their hand.
Yeah. Right. It's like a Lex Friedman. Like now, let's say Lex gets to like Rogan size. Like Lex won't have to change because he's very clean cut. He's very produced. He had Tim Dillon on, and that was hilarious. But
he's not pretend. Yeah, he's not going to have to pretend to be anything. He's not. He's just that guy.
And I enjoy him for what he is. I enjoy a band for this. I don't listen to Enya saying how come she's not more like Rage Against the Machine. When I want to listen to Enya and fall asleep, I listen to Enya. When I want to listen to Rage Against the Machine, I listen to Rage Against the Machine. I don't wish anything to be different than it is, right? So like when I'm really in the last couple of months started watching Lex Friedman, I watch him and I know what I'm watching. And it's intellectual stuff that's far above my head. When I listen to Rogan, I know what I'm listening to. When I listen to Tim Dillon, I know what I'm listening to. Yeah, it is a little, painful to see Rogan kind of become this and who knows, maybe this isn't an act. Maybe he is just, his podcast came out 10.5 years ago. Maybe he's changed as an individual. I don't know.
That's possible, it's like, I won't hold it against him. Like I respect, I get why he does what he does. I don't hate him for it, but it would be like if I turned into an American Badass episode and like Dale comes on with the mustache shaved off wearing a pink sweater vest. I'm gonna be like, at a certain point though, it's just like, I remember you used to be a hard ass. I remember you used to have these jokes, that's the only sting for it for me.
Yeah. It's like, you exactly that you watched, it's like episode 9/11 and episode 1255 when he had on Alex Jones and Eddie Bravo. Those two episodes are some of my favorite pieces of media ever created, ever. And when he came on for a third time, Alex Jones came on actually with Tim Dillon. That episode was so raped by Rogan. Like, we got to fact check. It's like, dude, like I get his employees. Like, we got to make sure we're not spreading misinformation.
He should have just had Tim Pool there. To be honest, he should have called up Tim Pool and had Tim Pool in the corner
and jerk each other off. Yeah.
Because to say it was raped, it was an understatement. Because like anyone that's followed Alex Jones and Joe Rogan, these guys are old school drinking buddies.
Yeah,
these guys used to just tear shit about whatever the fuck they wanted, and you could tell that Alex is actually hurt, like on a certain level, that Joe is being this kind of asshole towards him, when he knows exactly how he used to be. And it's like, do I understand why Joe wants to be super cautious and have a fact checker there to tick every box when Alex says something? Yeah. Do I think he should have had someone else maybe, get a second Jamie, bring Tim Pool back in, get someone else to do it? I think he totally should have done that, because the entire engagement between him and Alex just felt adversarial because, Joe's just being overbearing on Alex, and you could just tell Alex is a little bit betrayed. Like, what this isn't the Joe Rogan that, I used to hang out with.
It's like when you're hanging out with like, you see like your like best friend downtown or something in college, and you're going up to him and you're like saying like your inside jokes and shit, and you realize he's kind of looking at you and
he's next to his like coworkers or something.
Yeah, but it's like before you realize that, you almost feel betrayed. You're like, dude, why are you, you tell like a fucked up joke and he looks at you and you're like, dude, this is our joke. Don't make me look like the bad. And then you realize he's trying to get laid, and you're like, oh, okay, it's forgiven, right? But sometimes there is the friend that kind of like betrays you in like high school in front of the cool kids, and you're like, dude, like, well, I thought we were going to talk about just crazy shit, and it's betrayal. And it's like, man, like, you don't need, that's why I hate this whole like fact checker thing. Like, I'm an adult, dude. When I'm tuning into Alex Jones, I'm not tuning in to hear a State of the Union address. I'm tuning in to hear about the reptilian vampires from Draco that are raping the adrenochrome supplies of our kids. Like, I'm not, I know what I'm getting into. When I play Grand Theft Auto, I don't need someone going, now this is just a video game. I'm getting on to mow down people on Venice Beach with a chain gun. Like,
Chicago would disagree with you. Apparently that's causing the majority of the shootings in Chirac. By the way, are you familiar with Chirac bingo? If you type in Chirac, there's actually bingo cards.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that listen to the Chicago police scanner at night and they play bingo.
That's awesone.
It's kind of
again,
fun.
Right? It's even like watching Jackass. Like, don't do this. Like, I don't need. Like, I know I'm not gonna go fuck. I'm not joining Knoxville. I'm not getting into a ball pit with a midget and an anaconda. Like, it's just like and it does feel. And again, I got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Rogan has just matured as an adult. Maybe I'll be 50 one day and I'll go, oh, this wasn't an act. He just really was turning into an older, wiser man. Okay, whatever. But yeah, it does feel a little Trojan horse, right?
It's just there, and he can't help it. You know, Joe's a very smart guy, but it's just, you know, you could tell in that engagement he was being overly tactful,
cautious. And
it was, you know, and it's just it was painful.
It was like watching Brutus stab or like Judas go kiss Jesus.
He literally should have just had someone else in the corner with like a little box up there, just true.
Not even
true. Like should have outsourced that.
Just film the episode, upload it, and then upload it again, a second version, and you can pause it every 3 minutes and have a fact checker. Make it 5 hour.
Yeah,
it was so.
You know, the point is, there's a million ways they could have done that without just butchering the chemistry of two old drinking buddies.
Exactly.
Joe's a lefty, Alex Jones is Alex fucking Jones, and these guys used to be best fucking friends.
Yeah.
And how did we fuck this up? Like the fact that dynamic right there is fucked up is, you know, it's a microcosm for why the country's fucked up.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it's like, you know, you could almost look at the, like, I haven't watched the third Elon Musk episode because it's on Spotify, and I just, like, I don't fucking care. But it's like the first one where it's like Elon, we're on Occupy Mars smoking a joint, versus it's this very clean cut. Again, maybe he is just growing up, and maybe as you become an adult and you've done 1,500 episodes, maybe you're kind of tired of the same old, like, dick jokes, and maybe he does want to try to be something else. Who knows? Maybe I don't know. Well,
you know, when you see him with like Joey Diaz, he goes right back into it. But then again, Joey Diaz isn't trying to talk about, you know, the political scene. I don't know. I feel like Joe just has this, you know, and I want to say a lot of the former left kind of have this mentality of like, in order to cling to this former identity that is the left without being a full socialist, I somehow have to be this super tactful, you know, I got to ram a filing cabinet up my ass and you know, be that person. And it's like you see that with Tim Pool. And it's like, I get why Tim Pool does it. Like Tim Pool views himself as a bridge. Okay, he wants to have a white knuckle death grip on the title. I'm from the left as long as possible, just so that people can abandon the ship off of socialism and try to get somewhere in between. So it's like I understand why they do it. I respect why they do it. I'm still going to call them faggots, though, because I grew up a shitlord on the internet.
Yeah, no, I'll always call Tim Pool a faggot. But I do, you know, at the very least, he is consistently offensive.
Yeah, I respect
I'll give him that. You know, Lex Friedman is consistently a guy in a suit who talks like this. And today, hey, that's what it is, right? You know, again, Alex Jones will always be what he is. Tim Pool will always be this, like, well, let's not go too far. But, you know, he's built up his own 2 million subscriber platform. I can't shit on that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, we can respect people that are genuine. Yes. You know, it's the fake. We can totally disagree and respect each other, and we can get along. It's the disingenuous assholes, whether it's on the left or the right, you know, that, you know, rhino or socialist. Mm-hmm. It's those guys that are, you know, we have the issue with, and that fuck it up for everyone else because they want to play subversive word games.
It's like I don't agree with, you know, like Bill Maher or something, or who's the or like the Young Turks. I don't, you know, like anything about them, but you know what? I'll at least respect their consistency. They're consistently far left.
Yeah, I will respect that Chunk Yogurt is consistently wrong about literally everything, and goddamn, I respect anyone that can be wrong that often and stick to his guns. Like there's, you know,
hey, like
power to you.
Yeah, right. It's you know. But at least they don't try to parade as something else. There is something just a little like uncanny valley when I watch Rogan try to be this, you know.
Yeah, you can just tell he's, you know, it's a game face. He puts on a game face too. You can see when he's doing verbal jujitsu, and you can see it right in front of you. And it's just like, Joe, it's Alex Jones. You don't need to like
stop this. Can we look that up? Like. Because the thing is like he's stepping out of his like.
It's your best friend.
He's stepping out of like his competency zone, because if I want to go listen to someone that's not going to swear and is going to be measured in how they speak, I'm going to go watch Obama on a speaking tour, or maybe I'll go watch fucking Michio Kaku or something. When Rogan tries to do that, it's like it's like if Michael Jordan slowly tries to branch away from basketball and start teaching golf, I'm going to go to Tiger Woods, not Michael Jordan, right? So when I want to watch someone that's like measured and is very down the center and listens to both sides, I'm going to go listen to a Lex Friedman, who is capable of, or a Tim Pool. I'm tuning into Rogan because I grew up in college on the guy with two sleeves talking about DMT, aliens, and this podcast sponsored by the Fleshlight. He can't put on the suit of today we're going to be talking about this. It's like, dude, fuck off. But then again, who am I to judge a guy that has $100 million contract? Like, who am I to, you know?
Listen, it's all because, he grew up and he just grew out of fart jokes and the dick jokes, which I get it.
It could very well be that.
Sometimes that does happen. That being said, I've never met a man in my life that doesn't eventually come up with new fart jokes or dick jokes to replace the old ones, unless they're pretending to be something they're not.
Exactly, right? It's, again, like Lex Friedman, like, he's always that sort of, like, somewhat boring but wildly intelligent, measured, wearing a suit and a tie. Like, that's what it is, and, like, I tune in for that. Man, like, the moment I ever, like, stop having Dale on here calling for, like, to start blowing up cities or some shit, the fact, the moment I, like, stop having...
You can't do that because he's allowed to Fed post and I'm not. Like, he has to Fed post for all of us.
Yeah, exactly, right? But it's like the moment I stop having on, the moment they turn from, like, you and I go in and start talking about Bolivia and Bitcoin, and then it spirals off into conspiracies and Jesuits and cartographers. Like, the moment that stops, like, this podcast, it's kind of like a digital canary. The moment that I stop talking about just going autistic and just spewing everything, the moment I become a very well reserved, and today we're going to talk about this, unsubscribe and stop following me, because it means I'm dead. It means
we know there's an android or the vrill's been put in, or whatever conspiracy
just off camera pointing at me.
We're getting a rescue team or we're finding out who did at the very least.
I need to learn Morse code so I can blink. It's I just don't. But, and who knows, maybe I'm gonna get a firsthand, God willing, this podcast blows up, and maybe I'll experience firsthand. Maybe I do a decade of this. I mean, I've been doing this. It's March 16th. I've been doing this since December 12th, 2019. It's March 16th, 2021. Little, 15 months and 5 days, right? No, 15 months and 4 days. And this is episode 389. Maybe I get to month 140 in episode 1800, and maybe I only want to be like this well-measured fact-checking guy. Maybe you do just change. When I was 18, I was like, I just want to drink beer with my friends for the rest of my life. Now I'm like, man, I kind of want my own place. I like silence. I like having a couple of close friends, and I like reading, and it's really about it. I don't, I used to live and die for let's go to the bars, and now I'm like, dude, you couldn't drag me to a bar. Like
the Book Corner podcast now.
Yeah, there's people with music. Fuck that, dude. I want to stay home with the thermostat on what I want and play some video games while drinking a beer. Like, and I'm still Tommy. I still have the same social security number and thumbprint, but like I'm not that 18-year-old. And no part. I look at that person as an alien. Maybe I'll become that. Maybe in 9 years, I'll be going, oh, okay, I see why Rogan changed. Who knows? I would like to think I won't sell out, but
it's possible. But I don't think it's like. Do I think that Rogan matures as a person? Definitely. But it's for me. It's like I can always see the game face when he starts doing verbal jiu-jitsu and he gets really tactful like that. And it's just I don't think it's so much him growing up as much as him like just becoming hyper concerned about the situation and wanting to control the situation. It's like a control freak reaction and understanding the threats that are trying to take down his podcast. It's kind of a reaction to that.
Is he becoming Tim Pool? Gotta walk the center line. Can't offend anybody.
Well, Tim Pool's like The Apprentice. When you think about that, he's the up and coming, like being groomed to be the next JRE So it's possible, but they are of that same kind of mindset, and that's why it's like I don't just think it's, oh, he's grown up, he doesn't want to be funny anymore. I think it's very much like a game face. He thinks this is the best and only way to go about, winning this situation. And it's like, I can disagree with, I respect why he's doing it. I think I understand why. I still think that, I'd respect him more if he would just be a fucking asshole about it like the rest of us.
Yeah. Like, dude, just have on Alex Jones and just go down with the shit, man. Because by playing middle, you're not going to save anything. You're just going to have no one on the left. The appeasement doesn't work with them. You're never going to win them. All you're going to do is abandon the people that used to love you. That's the only thing that's going to happen.
And I look at it from the perspective that when you're that big anyway, if you can cause blowback on the platform, and you have the library, if you can cause the platform that is censoring you to blow up and cause the people to mistrust that platform, and you're still sitting on your fat stack of library where you've interviewed the world's most interesting goddamn people, doesn't, whoever puts up a website, YouTube 2, YouTube 3, or whatever, Rumble, you're still going to come out on King. You're still going to have the content.
Yeah.
So it's like, it goes back to, it's stupid that they try to put their finger on the scale, because at the end of the day, if they would just let these people do what they want and monetize it, you would have more money in the bank to try and convince them and fight them policy-wise than you do. Yeah, you should be monetizing your enemy.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about Eric July is, he always talks about, I monetize my haters. Every time someone comes in and tries to pull some bullshit with me, I'm making money off their ass. I love Eric July's mentality about that, because that's the right way to go. You monetize your enemy. You make them make money for you to destroy themselves.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you really wanted to push whatever agenda YouTube or Google has, some like neo-Marxist shit, the real way to go about it would be to allow it all to fly on your platform until you have 10 trillion in the bank, and then you wouldn't have to ask the way to the Emperor's Cauldron. You could just steamroll. But they're playing their cards too soon. They're showing the mask has fallen off, and everyone's
exactly it.
Everyone's seeing the censorship. They're like, oh wait, they're shutting down Alex Jones. They banned Trump. The mask fell off, and everyone saw the demon playing whack-a-mole. And it's like, dude, if you had just kept the mask on,
now it's just a panic death grip. Yeah.
If you had just kept the mask on for another decade, right? Because it's the other thing. Nothing makes it look more suspicious when you ban every episode that talks about election fraud and COVID-19. It's like, dude, if you really did do election fraud, and if COVID-19 really was a bioweapon, the single best thing you can do is let all the conspiracies fly.
Yeah, if you want to see what happens when you start saying we're going to ban anyone that's on this side of this election, or ban anyone that's on that side that's calling interference here and there. I mean, once again, we can go back to Bolivia and look at that as the little portal, and look at what happens to all their former presidents and interim presidents. And you look at the charges and what they wanted to bring up against Trump and how they wanted to deal with Trump. We're seeing, once again, it's the exact same game. It's just the dial versus the light switch. That's it.
Yeah. Now, I wonder, it feels like there are kind of these... it feels like there's almost like this like cyclical pattern where it's like, only the enlightened elite can, read the Bible and understand what God meant, and then everyone learns Latin, and then only the enlightened elite can read, but then there's the Gutenberg press, right? And then you gotta be, who can afford a radio tower, and then anyone can, and then who can be on TV, and then anyone can. And the internet was the Wild West, and then it's become this like corporatized, cleansed, there's only a handful of companies that run the whole thing. I feel like the natural system is we are due for another Wild West.
And that's why, as I said last time,
I'm going to grab an aspirin. My head's splitting.
All right. But as I was saying before, and on the last time I was on here, I view this as a continuation. Everything we're seeing now, if we look at what we call wars as more of the battle, and we look at the grand strategy of what's happening is a continuation of the 30 Years' War. And can we centralize the printing press? Can we keep the priest class the only guys that speak Latin and know the Bible? Going back to the argument before, the difference between an intelligence agency and a church is really just secularism. At the end of the day, is a class of people that are presumed to be so well educated in how the cosmos, the world, should be structured, that they are given license to lie, cheat, steal, murder, or you name it, to ensure that. And if a head of state comes along that comes against that policy, make no mistake, you will see them take out that head of state to maintain that policy. And so that's why I don't really view this, what we're in now as a new conflict. I just see new tools of the game emerging, but it's really the same old 30 Years' War, Protestants versus Catholics, Martin Luther, it's all about the centralization of the printing press. And so if we can essentially, going back to put more tools in the open source toolbox, if we can be creating a policy that incentivizes our institutions, our national security infrastructure, to be 100% about how do we make as many open source tools for this decentralized system, put it in that toolbox, then you're engineering a non-permissive environment for any centralized command economy. And that's the goal. That's ultimately the goal. If we can do that, we are solid for being able to say, let Elon do what he wants to do, work towards colonizing Mars. So, okay, you're not going to have the federal government trying to shake down Elon because he wants to do something. If we make open source tools to decentralize the information the norm rather than the exception. And I'm not a software engineer, but I've yet to meet a software engineer that is against the idea of making things open source for this purpose.
Do you think that maybe the total move is it's not actually? Fuck it. Let's go back to what I was saying before I left. Do you think that's what's coming? Is a new cycle of there's going to be a new Wild West? I don't know what it could be, but it'll be as alien to us as the internet was to the people in the 60s.
Well, I would say it's going to be the Wild Wild East in this case, because no matter how you cut this up, it is, Russia is not a threat to us. Russia isn't trying to take down, the nation states of the world or build some new world order. It's China that we got to worry about. And it's going to be all about building a containment coalition in Southeast Asia and around China. And I think as we see that happen, as the US dollar and essentially the what we call the institutions that run things really run themselves into the ground and finish it off, once we see the fact that China still needs to be confronted, these countries in Southeast Asia still need to be bolstered, and pretty much goes back to Bitcoin warlords hiring war fighters and out of self, not just to, be assholes about it, but out of self-interest. Hey, we need, if you want to have a place for your kids to learn how to shoot guns, to learn how to be anything like the man you were, you better be down with our side of the Bitcoin warlords thinking about what we're trying to do to keep a constitution and keep some kind of freedom than going with them. And so what's going to happen there is you're going to get the Wild Wild East. You're going to, and it's already kind of the Wild Wild East over there. But once the U.S. hegemony kind of collapses and it becomes more of a decentralized mercenary state thing, it's all you're going to get, really. It's going to be nonstop, non-state actor, low intensity conflict for probably 2 to 3 decades.
Now, so what I meant with the Wild Wild West was that was a brilliant answer, but I meant like platform, like going again from radio to TV to the internet. Is there going to be some new thing that, I'm not even talking about nations, I mean slips out of right, because we see the 600 corporations, the 600 media corporations being consolidated down to 6 right now. We see Alphabet, right, because that owns Google and YouTube. Then we have Facebook, which owns Facebook and Instagram, and we have Twitter. I mean, that's really about it. Do you think there's going to be a new thing that
Internet 2.0 is basically what you're talking about.
Exactly what I mean. Something that's going to, because originally when everything...
It's already happening.
What is it? Is it going to be Neuralink? Is that going to be the new thing?
Well, there we go into the cyberpunk. There's all kinds of crazy stuff we can get in there. But what we're seeing now, the Fediverse and whatnot, these, decentralized, the idea of, once again, blockchain doesn't just have to be used for, a digital currency. You could be using a blockchain to track, medical shipments, arms shipment. You could be using it for anything else. You can also be using blockchain essentially to create a decentralized version, which is what the Fediverse kind of is, a decentralized version of Twitter. And you're already going to see, just Telegram, for example, the amount of encrypted apps that are starting to multiply and multiply and multiply. The Internet 2.0 is already happening, and it's just so decentralized that unless you're already onto it, you're not there yet. It's right now. It's like a kudzu, just kind of like growing it on the outside where no one's really seeing it, and everyone's just kind of looking at the inside of the garden where Facebook kind of has, all these pretty vines and their plants and whatnot, and they don't realize that the kudzu is encircling the entire what they're making smaller and smaller. We're creating this wider net all around it.
So we're looking at this like very manicured, almost like golf course, and that's what big tech is they're like everything. The green has to be 1/16 of an inch, and then the rough has to be this, and you have to fall in here, and this is the 18th hole, and that's the 17th hole, and you have to stay on the golf court path, and don't you say that's a bad word. You're shadow banned. You're out. We're seeing that, and the reality is it's like, the true beauty of the internet was when it wasn't a golf course, but rather it was just this like sprawling field, and it's just vines growing over houses, and it's just this chaotic, right? As opposed to a water park, it's just a chaotic river, right? And maybe it's so effective at being Internet 2.0 that the fact that it's not well known is maybe that's a testament to its efficacy. Is because there's no big name. Hey, look, it's Internet 2.0. No, that's exactly what drove Internet 1.0 into the ground was, hey, look, it's Facebook, YouTube. Instead, it's Internet 2.0. Well, what's Internet 2.0? Well, here's a list of 700 encrypted communication platforms. Well, what is it? Well, that's exactly what Internet 2.0 is it's just Wild West. It's just chaos.
Yeah, and if we nuke, say, BitChute, and let's say we nuke every other alternative YouTube out there except for Rumble. Well, what happens? Well, now Rumble's standing by itself. Yeah, Rumble's by itself. And so either it's going to get infiltrated and assimilated, or B, Lawfare is going to fucking just cut it at the freaking ankles and just, they're going to, make it so they can't move as fast, and then they're just going to bleed them death by 1,000 cuts. And then you're back into the garden only. And so that's why the only option is to just keep making platform, eventually, or co-opting groups. I remember when all the Boogaloo groups were getting memed, one of the things that we just started, the first thing that we did is we started naming groups like CNN News or Vice News, and we started like all LARPing as like journalists, and because we were trying to get CNN banned and stuff like that. Yeah. Didn't quite work, but it was pretty funny. It was a good joke. And then the next thing, it just kind of became like nomads. Like we would just pick any other fucking group out there that already exists, and we just say we're turning this into the boot group. And you just go nomad. Yeah, it was just like Mongolian nomads. We're just going around into every other group, and all of a sudden it's like, where the fuck did all these Hawaiian wearing shirt dudes talking about guns come from in the knitting group? Well, guess what? Grandma's learning about the Constitution and AR-15s now.
Grandma's got to know how to shoot down range. Grandma's got to be able to acquire her target. But it's, you see it a lot, and you see it if you ever go to our conspiracy on Reddit, which is what it is. But it's been a consistently decent place for like 10 plus years, and I say that very loosely and generally. But you can go there and you can discuss election fraud and COVID and crime statistics, and you won't be screamed at and called a xenophobic Nazi. But if you go there now, a lot of people get really upset about it because there's a lot of pro-Trump stuff, there's a lot of anti-left stuff, and everyone's like, I miss our conspiracy. It's just become our the Donald. And it's like, well, when you ban a community, they
where do we gotta go?
And they go, when you destabilize a nation, don't be surprised when 100 million refugees flood the neighboring countries. So when you ban R the Donald or R conservative or R weekend gun it or R boogaloo, and you don't start to get upset when all of a sudden a new place has been hijacked because and why can't you go there? Well, when you remove their place to talk, where else are they going to go? You can't remove an ideology. We learned it in Vietnam. You can't do it.
Yeah, it comes back to right down the fighting even. It's like how did an Arturo O'Neill become a Spanish governor of West Florida? Well, the flight of the Earls, the wild geese, the fact that you had Great Britain, the British oppressing the Irish so much that the Irish are like, well, if I'm not welcome in my own country, I'm going to go and I'm going to sign up for whoever the fuck is fighting the British.
Yeah.
And so that's how you get Irish mercenaries all the fuck over the world. Next thing you know, there's, half of them end up in fucking Spain, and fighting for the Spanish. It's like, guess what? If you slap an entire community, you piss them off, you antagonize them, and then you tell them they can't meet up here. Well, guess what? They're going to go meet up with whoever's going to pick a fight with you.
Yeah, they don't give a shit, right? It's just fuck you. Why? Because fuck you, right? So that's... Yeah, it seems to be, and they're trying more and more to squash more and more dissent, right? You start to see it on the left now. Those who are like, what the fuck, Biden? Why are we bombing Syria? They're starting to be censored. And they're realizing, censorship isn't good. We're seeing it. Maybe everything's going according to plan, and that there is no plan. It's just a natural process. And this is the internet. It's becoming cleaner and cleaner and more. Everything's good. You can't say this. There's none of that chaotic, hashtag you're a faggot, a picture of Goatsy stretching his asshole.
When 13-year-olds essentially ruled the world because we knew how the internet worked better than anyone else, and no one could stop us from saying shit like that.
When LimeWire took down the record industry, right? They all go somewhere else. You can't remove it, right? You can't remove that stuff. So, man... It's
you can regulate, but you can't remove.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes next. Now, I wonder if the move is just entirely, maybe there's just, you're right, maybe it's just like Elon. Maybe he's got the smartest approach, and it's that this whole thing is fucked. Just leave entirely. Like I'm just leaving.
Well, it is the smartest approach no matter what, because at the end of the day, just going to basic redundancy, let's assume that there is a near peer threat somewhere out in the galaxy that could wipe us.
Apophis, the asteroid that's going to hit on Friday the 13th, 2029.
Yeah, let's say that there's anything out there that could end Earth. It's just basic redundancy. You want two of everything at the very least. If we're going to survive as a species, we have to be decentralized. We have to be able to take a hit. And right now, we have one planet that can take a hit. And if that one planet takes a hit, that's it. That's game over. That's, the Library of Alexandria gets burned. That's the Mongols come into Baghdad and the Euphrates runs red with blood before it runs black with ink. And then next thing you know, you have tribes where all of the educated men have been killed and all of the books have been, thrown into a river. And back then you do something like that. Guess what? You just set an entire region back, 300 years.
Yeah. It seems like it's odd because it seems like is it that the power structure doesn't want. It'll be interesting to see if he somehow gets sabotaged, because it's almost just like, hey, if you don't like Twitter, create your own. So they create Parler, and they're like, no, I didn't mean that, and so they shut it down off Amazon Web Services. If you don't,
comes back controlled as shit. Yep.
Yeah, and it's just they came on, and the first thing they did was they banned Linwood, and it was just like, dude, the whole purpose was to, and so now it's all right, fuck you, Parler. Now you truly are just a shitty nothing company.
Yeah, there's no reason Andrew Torba shouldn't be everything that you could have had.
Yeah, it's like I went out of my way to post my podcast on Parler because I was like, I'm going to at least, I can't just say I want a new platform and not at least try to contribute. So I'll do that. I'll post my content there. I'll have an account. I'll share the links, because you have to be the change you want to see in the world, right? So I'm basically Buddha. That's what I'm trying to get at. But just like with Parler, it's like, no, we didn't mean that. So they cut it off on Amazon Web Services. It's going to be interesting if they see Elon, who's just like, I don't want to play this Earth game. I'm going to go to Mars. Yo, if anyone wants to come with me, can't guarantee you'll survive the trip. But if you do go there, it's going to be a bitchin' new crib. It's going to be the original SNL.
The new world all over again.
Are we going to see the power structure go? Are they going to pull a parlor on SpaceX? Are they going to go? You can't leave. You have to stay within our panopticon.
And so, in my argument, what I made kind of last time, I'm still kind of sticking by it, is that once again, their greatest fear is that decentralization of the energy. It's losing control of who can produce what. And as soon as Elon is, whether it's Mars, whether it's some asteroid belt somewhere, as soon as Elon has essentially unlimited resources that can't be taxed or regulated, and he can 3D print those things into whatever the fuck his scientists come up with, you now have a potential peer threat for what your system is that you're trying to...
Your millennia-old system.
Yeah, and that, once again, it's like, why do they hate our Constitution? Why do they need to implode America? Because as long as America exists, someone's getting in that crop duster, someone's getting on that sailboat, someone is trying to flee totalitarian hell. And guess what? As soon as that's happening, you've got the brain drain, and then you're winning.
And you can't keep your shitty totalitarian country because everyone has something.
So they can't even let it get that far.
So it's like what General Flynn said. He was like, America is the last stand. There's nothing to go back to. I think just the other day he said, I will be dead before this country turns Marxist.
Love him. God bless the man. Yeah, I didn't know I knew he was getting spicier by the day, but God, I have heard him say that this is the last stand, and he's absolutely right. I used to be of the mindset, fuck it, I'm gonna go, vanish off the grid on island in Southeast Asia. Yeah, that was originally my mindset, but now I'm at the point where it's like, if I did that, A, I wouldn't be able to quite live with myself until I make sure that my family's set up and good to go. B, once again, if we don't have a constitution back here for me to promote over there,
there's nothing, baby.
Then there's nothing. So this is strategic value absolute. We can't lose this.
You can't get in your little party boat and stay in the wake of an aircraft carrier, knowing that you can always go back to the aircraft carrier if you hit heavy seas. Right? You got to have the aircraft carrier. That's the only way your little party boat exists. Right? It's kind of like Jack Nicholson, right? It's you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. You need the American. You need this center, whether you like it or not. America's done some unbelievably fucked up shit. I'm not trying to say it hasn't, but man, I would rather have us in charge than have China in charge, because there's nothing to fall back to. And is that, who knows? Maybe it's all working out just according to plan. Is maybe you have to have currency that it's so manipulated and so worthless and it's so unfair that forces, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. And as the author Vince Hoffman said, necessity is the mother of invention and desperation's the drunk uncle.
Well, what did Steve Bannon do back in the day when he was first getting involved in China? He was looking at World of Warcraft gold farmers, looking at people mining a currency inside a video game and figuring out, how can I hire nerds to monetize this and blow this up? So
I don't know that.
Like Steve Bannon actually has a weird little bit of history where it's like the WoW gold farmer thing. It's a little bit of esoteric lore out there. But so, to an extent, you have to think that, and it's not like this is some secret play. I mean, they've openly said that, a lot of them believe that China could be a paper tiger that we could kind of outrun and cause the collapse like the Soviet Union.
I think we can. I think it'll be close.
And with open source tools, with open source currencies like Bitcoin, we're putting the tools in the toolbox for it to happen. We're giving them the wrenches to disassemble the machine,
and constructed methodically around them.
And guess what? If they're the ones that disassemble it, it wasn't imperialist America. It wasn't us interfering.
I just had a thought.
It was the will of the Chinese people.
I just had a thought. Is America at its base the shitposting early 2000s internet? Will it always exist in one form or another? Because when you're in school and you're not... I went to Catholic school. You weren't allowed to have your hair over your ears or your collar. So naturally, I had hair right down to the edges. You couldn't have it over your eyebrows either. So I had hair that long.
Right up to the line, yeah.
Until I went to college, and there was no rule about hair. It was just like, what? No, study. I wanted to be a biology major. And I realized, oh, well, what do I actually want? Oh, I enjoy short hair. It's been short for 12 years. It's just like within a month, I was like, oh.
I miss short hair. This is way too much.
But the point is you want to do what you can't do as like a kid, like, right? It's like the idea of trying to force political correctness onto like this young generation now is the dumbest thing you can ever do, because when the teacher says don't say this word, or when your parents say don't play Grand Theft Auto San Andreas or watch Jackass or listen to Eminem, what are you gonna do? That's exactly, you're gonna dye your hair with peroxide, you're gonna be Slim Shady, and you're gonna watch Jackass and play San Andreas. So it almost seems like at its very nature, this idea of this totalitarian top-down control, be it CCP, big tech, Agent Zuckerberg, whatever, there's a natural human inclination. On one hand, we could argue it's all about liberty and freedom and the pursuit of happiness. But on the other hand, is it maybe a less romantic version, but kind of the same core idea? We're all just shit posters at heart. And anytime a country tries to shut down that shit posting, be it big tech or be it East Berlin, everyone leaves to go do the Rumble, the BitChute, the America.
The brain drain.
Yeah, whether you're leaving so you can go practice your own religion, or whether you're leaving so that you don't have to go work because you want to open up a store. You want to open up a store in America and have the American dream instead of working in some manufacturing plant in northern Russia. You're right. It's everyone leaves because there's like this natural place where everyone wants to go and just do what you want. Is America? Maybe this is just some patriotic speech that could be used, but is it at its base? Is that what it is? Is people's genuine desire to just go do whatever the fuck they want and just leave me alone? Just fuck off. Just monetize me and leave me alone.
Well, it's exactly that, because you think back to the last Cold War we were in. What was it that really helped? Let's call them the patriots of the Russians that wanted to be free of the tyranny. Well, they're looking at American culture. They're watching these hilarious freaking comedians that will get up and talk shit about presidents, talk shit about congressmen. They'll talk shit about whatever the fuck they want. You've got, American rock bands going out there busting guitars and just being over the top, just culture, literal culture, that just looks like it's fun to be a part of. And why wouldn't you want to have, to join the team? Do you want to be on the team that's just, constantly, losing everything, getting their ass chewed out for losing everything? Do you want to be stuck in this reverse feedback loop of suck, or do you want to be over here with the guys that are throwing the party?
Yeah.
And once again, it comes back to that. If there's a tyrannical system and there's a bunch of guys having fun and throwing a party, all the smart people are going to figure out how to get to that party.
Yeah, and it's whether it's leaving Cuba on like a raft of tires, or whether it's going, fuck this, follow me on Rumble, BitChute, and Spotify.
Yeah,
it's kind of the natural course of things, right? Do you want to stay on one platform where you can't misgender? How dare you not tell this woman? First of all, it's kind of become like you have to say stunning and brave, and I respect your sexuality and gender fluidity. What if I just want to hey, does anyone want to post spicy JFK memes?
Yeah, and this is exactly why China focuses so hard on buying out Hollywood and controlling and policing our culture, is because they fully understand if we went 70s and 80s, sex, drugs, rock and roll, good time, having a party, and we're letting people talk shit, have fun, and just make creative, genius shit, whatever the fuck they want. Guess what? China's fucked if we did that.
Yeah.
And that's it. They have to control our culture, or our culture will dominate their culture. And that's why the Saudis embrace Wahhabism, because if you look up even El Wahhab and where that ideology came from, it's not necessarily a call to jihad, but it goes back to the Age of Sail, where European empires are blowing up and starting to dominate the globe, and essentially the Muslims realizing, hey, if we don't get our shit together, not necessarily a call, a call to war, but a call to arms, to snap to, so to speak. Hey, these guys are quickly becoming a threat that we're not going to be able to deal with if we don't get our shit together. And so their mindset was to create this fundamentalist Islam that would protect against it. And that actually got shelved for a long time. And then post World War II, when the Saudis realized that there's two powers that want what they're sitting on. Okay, they're sitting on the most valuable substance, that may as well be known to man, and they're going to have to buddy up to somebody. And they chose America. They wanted to side with America. We wanted them, and they understood that if they just formed a business relationship, we were going to dominate their culture. We were going to take over their culture. The reason they backed Wahhabism and started dumping money into essentially spreading this all over is because they very specifically understood that they were insulating their culture. Mm-hmm. And that's really what Wahhabism is about. It is about insulating their culture from our sex, drugs, violence, and all that good stuff that would make the Russians want to jump the border, essentially.
I remember when I was going through Rush for fraternities in August 2009 in Valdosta. You go to each fraternity and they try to kind of like pitch their thing to you, and you're going to go pledge up and you're going to be an indentured slave for 3 months. But I remember going to a bunch of them and they're all like, I thought they were kind of gay. I was like, this is kind of circle jerk. I feel like I'm going to end up doing an elephant walk. But then I remember looking at this one, and it was Kappa Sig at Valdosta State, and I remember walking up to their front lawn, and they had all the brothers had their trucks there, these big lifted trucks, and they clearly had all just gone to the car wash.
The good old boy network, yep.
They had clearly just gone to the car wash. These things were all polished and waxed, and they were set out on the front lawn in a way that they don't normally park. It looked like a car lot. And I remember walking up to the front of the house, and the house is just miraculous, right? And I remember lined up on the front, it was almost just like a bunch of like waiters at a 5-star restaurant. It was all the brothers, but they were all cookie cutter. They're all wearing their Brooks Brothers shirt. They all had on a visor. They all had Croakies. They all had Sperry's, and they all had high khaki shorts. And I remember they were just cookie cutter. And I remember walking up, and like I was just uncanny valley, like something in like my hairs were standing up. I was like, this is just. What is this? This felt very like, would you like to hear about our Lord and Savior, Tom Cruise, Scientology? And then I remember going to the house next door, Pi Cap. And I remember no one came to meet me. I didn't even know if this was the right house. The house was a mess. There was a pool in the backyard. And all the brothers were on the back porch. Some were in the kind of the frat attire. Some had just got back from the gym. One of them was like on a skateboard. A couple were playing sports. A couple more were like gaming like nerds in like the living room. And there was just a bunch of beer. You were strictly not allowed to have alcohol at a Rush event. Right? You walked in, there's just a bunch of beer. They just didn't care. And I remember going there, and none of them gave a fuck. And they're just like, oh, what's up, dog? And they gave such a small shit about me. They were more interested in trying to fuck all the girls than they were to try to get guys to come join their fraternity. That I was so wildly attracted to that. And that's the one I ended up joining. And they're still some of my best friends to this day. It's because it was that culture. It was that sex, drugs, and rock. The house was a mess. It was destroyed.
Everyone's doing what they want to,
Some guy had a revolver. There was like there's all this weird shit. And I was just like, there wasn't a fire pit in the back. There was just kind of this general area where they burn things right below a power line. And it was just like, there was this general, I was like, what is this? And I went to a couple more fraternities after that, and they were all lesser versions of the original awkward, scary one, where it was just ticky-tacky. And I remember going back to Pi Cap like a week later for another party. And it was the same thing. They didn't give a fuck. I remember coming back from the bars at like 2 a.m. and I remember seeing 2 brothers in there. I thought there were gunshots, but it was 2 brothers pissed drunk, and they were dueling with Roman candles in the house. Just blowing. There was just there was black marks on the wall, and I was just like, I was in love at first sight. I was like, just madness.
My people.
And I was like, I'm home. And then I went through pledgeship for 3 months. They treated us like shit. They tried to kill us with alcohol poisoning, and I made it through, and it was a fucking blast. And I remember that, like, none of them gave a shit about anything. No one gave their badge of honor was like getting suspended from Greek Week like every year, and it was just like they didn't care. And they had almost been kicked off campus. They finally were, like 2 years ago. After 60 years, they were finally kicked off campus. They
won the game.
They didn't give a shit. And it was their total lack of giving a fuck that I was just so wildly attracted to. And you're right. China is kind of like Kappa Sig. And we were literally next door. you can't have them looking over the fence and seeing a bunch of... We had the only pool on campus. How they fucking managed to have a pool under a fraternity, God knows what insurance plan that was. But you can't have people looking over the fence. Like, every year you'd have a big party and everyone would have their themed party. The Rednecks kind of had this whole cowboy themed party. Kappa Sig had their whole thing, and it was just... But I remember Pi Caps, it was just called Purple Haze. It had nothing to do with Jimi Hendrix. There was no theme. There was nothing. I just remember every year it was just, hey, if you have any like decorations to put up. So instead of this like cheesy, like, this is a cowboy, yuck, it was just... I remember my first year, there was like a 30-foot tall inflatable Santa Claus. There was a mannequin with a dildo taped to its crotch, and the dildo was next to a cardboard cutout of Uncle Sam, or not Uncle Sam, fucking Colonel Sanders, which they had pledged steal from a KFC, and someone had made a speech bubble and put it next to him, and it was just all the words that if I said on this YouTube channel, I'd be banned. Just right there on the chimney, not because anyone was racist, but it was just kind of because you weren't...
The George Carlin list of words, right? It was the George Carlin... Oh, that's a little farther than that. And it was just like, there was none of this fancy, like, it was just, they just had like 6,000 beers and a couple of like pickup trucks. And that's what it was. And I remember it got like, the party got broken up like the year after I left because one of my frat brothers made out with a girl, and the girl's boyfriend came back to the party with a revolver. And so one of my frat brothers bit his ear off, like Mike Tyson. The Mike Tyson play,
and it made the news.
Bold move.
And I remember, although I had transferred to the University of Georgia, I saw that and I was like, no part of me surprised. I was like, that's fantastic.
That's my boys. That's my boys.
I'm glad that they're true to form. And eventually they got kicked off and the house was demolished and that fraternity doesn't exist anymore. But you know what? They went down with the ship. They didn't pull a Joe Rogan. They went down with Alex Jones.
They will be legends.
They went down as legends. And to me, you can't have that. When every other fraternity is, you got to have your Sperry's, you got to have your Crokies. How big is your truck? You should get the Ford F-450, blah, 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 blah. And then you go next door, and there's a big Santa Claus with a dildo, and there's Colonel Sanders saying the N-word, and you're just like, what is this place? And it's like, what are we doing after the bars? Maybe have a bottle rocket fight inside. Is that legal? No. What if the chapter gets kicked off campus? Well, then I guess that'll be it. And it was...
Beautiful.
It was the cool kids. It was the cool kids that didn't care. And you can't have that. You can't have that if you're China. You can't have the cool kids in America. You can't have the whole fuck you commies and let's do a mag dump while, boning a Pam Anderson 10 and drinking beer, happy 4th of July. You can't have that. And I just went on like a 30-minute rant, but like, you're right. You can't. You have to control culture because more than a brain drain where the smart people will leave for economic opportunity and they don't want to be part of a totalitarian dictatorship, so they want to go work for the American companies. But also just in general, right? The biggest weapon you could possibly do in China would be to drop
culture.
It would be to airdrop. It would be to airdrop thumb drives of Alex Jones speaking. You could airdrop like blue jeans and maybe some hard drives full of Pornhub. That's how you would dissolve China. And
that's exactly it. At the end of the day, it's like, look at all the people fleeing like New York for Florida right now.
Yes.
If you have a state in the union that says income tax is stupid, we're not going to do it. Suddenly everyone paying income tax looks like pretty fucking stupid.
It's pretty dumb, right? Right? It's Texodus, right? Everyone leaving California.
Yeah, and, it's that simple. As long as there was a place on earth that says, you know what, the Constitution's great and taxes are gay. Suddenly, everyone that hates the Constitution and wants taxes has to get rid of that place, or that's where all the people with money are going.
Yeah, when one state says, you should be ashamed that you're white and you need to pay triple your taxes for these poor people coming over the borders, and then the other one says coronavirus is fake and gay, you're like, huh, Florida starts to look a little more like Pi Cap. They've got the,
exactly.
And you're like, huh, I think I'm going to go down there. And you can't have that though, right? That's how you keep. So is that what Elon's eventually going to do? Is Elon going to Mars? Is Mars just going to become, is he going to be the ultimate Florida man?
He's originally South African.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, Elon has the potential to go beyond Florida Man. I mean, it is really there. We're capable. Listen, I never thought I'd say this in my life. Okay, I'm born and raised in Florida. You know, I'm used to seeing, you know, some crazy people who are willing to do crazy things. They're just normal around here. You just grow up that way. But Elon, I mean, the dude's literally already saying, we're not going to recognize Earth laws, okay?
He did?
I'm pretty sure he's on record, you know, saying, hey, when we're out there, we're going to have our own legal system. So basically what Elon's saying is, get the Roman candles in the bottle rockets. Like, you know, it's happening.
Get Colonel Sanders, get the beer. Like, that's what we're doing. And you know what's going to happen? Is that's going to be like post-World War II America. It's going to boom because it draws your innate central human spirit to just want to be free.
Yeah, and who doesn't want to go and be on the pioneering edge of like whatever this new free shit is, you know? Yeah, it might suck because you got to farm some potatoes and poop, you know, to get the planet, you know, breathable and, you know, or what the hell ever. But at the end of the day, the fulfillment that comes with being a part of that, that's what built America. You know, it's that pioneer spirit. And, you know, all that spirit's never going away. Those people are always going to find an outlet for it, whether it's an East India trading company, whether it's a private military company, whether it's a state military. You know, at the end of the day, when all those things collapse, all those motherfuckers that want to play the game, you know, they're not just going to stop. They're going to go, you know, whether it's, you know, they'll call themselves fucking Knights of Malta. They'll call themselves Asymmetrical Logistics, you know, no liability corporation. You know, it doesn't fucking matter. They'll still link up and they'll still do their thing and they'll build something somewhere and they'll fuck people that try to fuck them. Yeah. It's just human nature. And when we try to pretend that that's not the case, you know, that's when you end up with the war that nobody expected to happen. Is because everyone was just like, oh, you're no balls. You're never going to do it. Yeah. You're never going to do it. You're never going to do it. Next thing you know, your head's a canoe.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, you get the right. You don't keep pushing the quiet kid. Right. It's like poor kid MP3, rich kid MP4, quiet kid MP5. Right. Elon's going to be. Yeah, Elon with Alex Jones pioneering Mars, just be the Wild West. Man, if that won't explode.
Thucydides' trap, man. Eventually it comes down to the idea of what happens if Elon is 3D printing more military power than what is already here.
Yeah.
But, you know, as soon as that happens, you're right back into Thucydides' trap now, just at a major scale. Yeah. You know, you're still going to have the same conundrum of people white-knuckle death gripping power.
Yeah. Maybe that's the way to go, is you just leave entirely. You just leave the fucking planet.
Breakaway civilization.
He can go create his own cryptocurrency there. And just, it's what it is.
And also, can you imagine, like, if the brain drain that would happen?
Yeah.
You know, what would happen to Earth after everyone that wants to be free, after everyone that wants to actually innovate says, fuck it, we're going out of here.
Collapse just.
I mean, you want to talk about, like, biblical Babylon going down.
Just true hellscape.
Yeah, that's pretty much what's going to happen, is suddenly all of the people who shouldn't be making decisions and trying to figure out how to run security are now making decisions and trying to run security. And there's going to be a lot of incidents. You know, they're just not going to have the trigger control the professionals have, and you're just going to have, you know, hood rats popping off on each other. That's what's going to break down to.
And then in 1,000 years, the Mars colony will eventually get an entrenched power structure. It'll get the senior executive service.
So Warhammer 40K covers all this, by the way. We call it the Unification Wars. And Mars basically becomes this technocratic church thing that worships technology, and Earth just gets completely decimated, almost just this lifeless husk of a planet full of warring tribes. And the lore is basically when humanity builds this giant empire at the height of its technology, the emperor is kind of like an introvert. He's not really leading it. He's just kind of like designing stuff and letting it go out there for humanity to run or something like that. And after that collapse, the emperor basically has to come up with like plan B. Okay, fuck it, I'm going to lead this shit myself. It's going to be a tyrannical regime. It's going to be an autocracy, and people are just going to have to fucking live with it because we're out of options. You know, there's threats coming down. Humanity either has to achieve hegemony over the galaxy or we're fucked. And so that's why I would say you would love Warhammer 40K, because it explores so many of these little rabbit holes.
I need to dive into the lore. It's eventually, it seems like it comes down to the Bitcoin warlords, right? You leave the planet.
Rogue traders, man.
It'll leave the planet. 1,000 years into the future, you'll have an entrenched power structure on Mars, and then someone's going to say, "Hey, let's go to Pluto," and all the cool kids are going to go to Pluto. And then
we're making Pluto a planet again.
Yeah, and then 1,000 years into the future, Pluto will have its own SES, Senior Executive Service. Maybe that's just the natural cycle of life. You get consolidated and you get corporatized, and then someone saves up a bunch of money and goes, "Yo, just bought a bunch of land. Let's go have a party." And that's how you form another America. Maybe we're just going to always be outrunning that corporatization forever and ever and ever.
That's the struggle, man.
Maybe that's just the game of life, is we're just playing a video game.
Warring apes. You know, we go from stoned ape to warring apes.
Fucking right. David, let's wrap this one up. My brain's fried. 3 hours and 26 minutes. Jesus Christ.
Hey, I've been up since midnight, so I'm
oh, Jesus. Dude.
You know, if you want to wrap this up, I'm down, or we can go for 15 hours and, I'll give you 15 episodes. You can cut it up.
Let's wrap this one up. This one will take a day to upload. It's going to take several hours just to process. I got to compress it, put it in iMovie. My computer hits like fusion temperatures. That's why I'm wearing a jacket and a hoodie, because it's like 58 degrees in here. So and I've got my box fan heat sink. So I'm just going to jack this thing up and cool down this computer. But, Bitcoin warlords. That's it.
Bitcoin warlords and Red Terror taking over South America, which, by the way, you think about all the mining that gets done, you think about all the businesses that's being done in South America, and you just have to wonder, with our lack of missile defense in the South, just what's in those shipping containers? That's the heroin for the speedball that, just leave on the back burner and think about.
What's in those fucking shipping containers? My only conclusion is this, and I told this to Claire. I think we just played their own game, and we bought a bunch of the shipping containers too, and we have them spread out all over Russia and China. And it's like, if you want to play the game, we'll play too. And it kind of cancels it out, just like ICBMs.
Double down. It's the only way.
Double down. Hey, you're going to put, hey, we have shipping containers right in your backyard, America. We're in Florida. We have nuclear-tipped cruise missiles, and we're just like, what do you think we've been doing? Look at all your ports. How sure are you that they're not in those containers? That's what mutual assured destruction. Mutual assured destruction is the most peaceful practice of all time. Deterrence
is the language of peace.
It is. It's we, just when they think they're sneaky because they put the gun against our head, it's like, dog, what do you think's behind you? It's a three.
that meme of the guy sitting in the church pews with
it goes, and it's in a finally the last one is what the first person's aiming at. It's like in the miniseries Chernobyl. The KGB is a circle of accountability. I watch him, he watches him, he watches him, and he watches me. That's all it is. David, I'll message you. We'll set up our next podcast, and yeah. Jesus Christ, 3 hours.
Looking forward to it.
3 hours, 29 minutes. Man, my screen recording is reading 116 gigabytes. I'll have to compress this. Jesus Christ.
My bad.
No, not at all, man. Not at all. It's beautiful. I love it. Get my money out of this computer. But all right, man. Yeah, I got to go get some food because I can't think straight. I normally go for an hour.
Yep, I probably got to go rescue my parents from having to babysit my bird. So
that's true. All right, everybody.
I'll be on Telegram, and y'all have a good one, guys.
Bitcoin warlords, stay safe, and I don't know, Elon 2020. Fuck, I mean
Elon 2024.
2024. All right, David. I'll see you, buddy. Take care, man. Peace.